The following is a special presentation of ESPN on ABC.
Morning in the heartland, and no one needs to be reminded to wake up on this Sunday because this is a day circled on every calendar for racing fans all across the world. For the hundreds of thousands who travel here, love of this sport is always in the air. But for the drivers, the ultimate prize is to win. Hello and welcome to the 99th running of the Indianapolis 500. I'm Lindsay Zarniak, and nobody would argue that today, this is the best place to be on Earth. Take a look at where we're coming to you from atop the iconic pagoda that looks down over Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You can see the view behind me, the sea of fans that is poured into the garage, that is walking out along Gasoline Alley. This is an atmosphere of possibility. It is one of past and future, of speed and sport, of man and machine. This is the one and only Indy 500. And of course, this is an event that is laced with traditions. It starts with the cannon blast that opens the day at dawn. Not always the driver's favorite. In fact, some say it's both symbolic and annoying to be awakened so early because the anticipation is so fierce, there is no going back to sleep. The delivery of the milk to be enjoyed by the eventual winner, another tradition, as is the displaying of the Borg-Warner Trophy, and of course, the world-famous yard of bricks. There is the pageantry of the Indy 500, and as always, lurking beneath the fanfare, there's the danger. Drivers have to believe in themselves, but sometimes to do that, they have to deceive themselves. They have to lie to themselves to put that fear behind them, to justify what they are about to do. Indy is always a battle of man versus racetrack, but over the past few weeks, it's the racetrack that has won. There have been several accidents that have been scary for the fan base. Three-time Indy 500 winner Helio Castroneves was first. He flipped backwards in turn one. Joseph Newgarden also lost control coming out of a corner. He flipped over, landed upside down. Ed Carpenter lost control. He went airborne, skidding upside down before he finally came to a stop. Those were unscathed, but that wasn't the case for James Hinchcliffe. A mechanical failure in his car Monday caused him to slam into a wall going 228 miles per hour. The injuries he suffered were so serious, he had to have emergency surgery. Thankfully, Hinchcliffe is okay. He's recovering at a nearby hospital. Indy has made a change for today's race to help keep these drivers safer. We will have more on that in a moment, but first, we check in with Dr. Jerry Punch, who was able to visit with James Hinchcliffe. He has more now on his condition. Doc?
Well, thank you, Lindsay. Folks, as you saw in that graphic video, James Hinchcliffe's impact almost head-on with the wall was about as violent as we've seen at Indy in quite some time. Now, upon impact, a right front suspension piece penetrated through the car and went into his pelvis, producing a significant blood loss. But the Homatro safety team went to work and remarkably extricated him from the car very quickly. And then with trauma surgeon Tim Pullman riding in the ambulance, they went down to IU Health Methodist Shock Trauma Unit and then moments later in the surgery. Now here's the good news. Yesterday I went down to the hospital and visited with James Hinchcliffe, and although he was uncomfortable, he had that same great sense of humor that he is known for. And he asked that I extend his appreciation to all the drivers, fans, and so many others who have offered their prayers and support. Now his mom and dad, Arlene and Jeremy, actually came out here to the racetrack a couple of days ago and grabbed the entire safety team and put them in a room to personally thank them for saving their son's life. And Hinch told me that he will probably be discharged in a few days, and then he will take it one day at a time to work his way back. Folks, this is an amazing story of triumph over tragedy. And now for what happened about that suspension piece and what's been done, let's bring in our Jan Beekes.
And Doc, when these cars hit the wall, of course, these suspension pieces are actually designed to crush to soften the blow. But in the case of the Hinchcliffe crash, this lower portion known as an A-arm was a problem when it broke. Here's what it looks like when it's uncovered. And it broke where there were exposed threads. That made for a sharp surface, which then pierced through the car into the cockpit. So all the cars today have been updated with these plates. These are steel. They're known as anti-intrusion plates. If you have a nut on both sides, see, no longer is there exposed threads, and if this were to break off, now it's not a sharp point, it's a blunt surface that very unlikely will that go through this high-tech carbon fiber chassis. So it's a small piece, it's hidden behind this cover, but it may make a big difference in driver safety. Lindsay?
Thank you, Jan. This has been a high-anxiety month, as you could imagine, for drivers at this speedway. So for more perspective on how that impacts today's race, I want to bring in our analysts, former drivers themselves, 1998 Indy 500 champion Eddie Cheever, two-time runner-up Scott Goodyear. And gentlemen, anybody that has seen what has gone on wonders, as do I, how do these drivers possibly find the confidence to get back in these cars for today's race?
Well, Lindsay, this race and this track will always test a driver's nerves, and especially so far this month because of the crashes that we've had. Now, some drivers will be able to put that out of their mind. Some others will not. And Eddie, we know from climbing this seat, we have to be clear-minded for 500 miles around this place.
Well, if I was driving today, I would be very relieved that they made those suspension changes. It's always good to have the knowledge that the people that are looking after your interests, the sanctioning body, are making changes as quickly as they can. But all these drivers have one thing in mind right now. They have to make it through that first corner. They're not thinking about suspension or anything else except, I've got to get through that first corner.
Eddie Cheever, Scott Goodyear, gentlemen, thank you. We'll see you later just before the race. So as you heard the drivers talking about as well, they will try to compartmentalize that fear as best they can, because the bottom line at the end of the day, the reward of winning this race far outweighs the risk.
Anytime that you're on an oval doing 230 miles an hour with a concrete wall that's only 6 feet high, there's a massive amount of danger.
It's definitely a balance of having that respect for the speed, but also not being intimidated by the consequences.
You don't know how many chances you're going to get, so in the moment, you know, I can't say you're really thinking about the risk at all. You're just thinking about the reward.
The Indianapolis 500 is the biggest race of the year, the biggest race in the world, and so you risk it all to try to have your name up there on the Borg Warner Trophy at the end of the day.
To the biggest sporting event in the world. You can see the fans have made their way to the track down below. You will find innovation and you will find progress in every field, but the ongoing march to the future is perhaps best understood in racing because there's only one goal: speed and more speed. So here's a look at how man and machine have pursued that outer edge with Indy cars, pushing the speed limit over time. You can see here how much speed has evolved when you look at the average speed for the race back in 1911 and compare that to the fastest race ever in 2013.
They thought the tapered tail of the Marmon Wasp was just for looks. They were wrong. Ever since they started racing in Indianapolis 99 races ago, men have searched for more speed.
George Sally sat down to his drafting table and dreamed a dream of speed.
Innovators, engineers, designers, dreamers.
Here comes the blue streak, Corey Rose in a Blue Crown Spark Plug Special.
Those who have wondered about the hows and whys in the science of speed. Time and time again, they've thrown down the gauntlet, challenging the drivers to get into the cars they've conceived and see how fast they can go.
Men who devote their lives to speed and competition and raw courage.
Streamlining, turbocharging, wings, slick tires. Drivers with test pilot mentality, forsaking danger with a single goal in mind: going fast.
And it's a new track record.
Aerodynamics, ground effects, sheer guts, willing man and machine to go faster, all the while whetting the fans' insatiable appetite for speed. The fastest drivers in the fastest racing cars in the world. Now, it's back to the drawing board.
And when it comes to the pursuit of speed, at least in qualifying, that goes to Target Chip Ganassi Racing and Scott Dixon. Congratulations. Now, things are going to start to ramp up and get intense today. Is your stress level lower knowing you're starting on the pole?
No, well, I don't know. Stress is kind of what you do to yourself, I think, a little bit. But you know, obviously, this is a big event, and we want to do well. I think, you know, the only thing that we can really concentrate on is eliminating mistakes and making sure that, you know, through your mind, you understand what you got to do today, what the team has to do, and just you know, if you have a relatively easy, straightforward day, you're going to have a shot at winning this race. And you know, the Team Target car has been strong all month. we're starting in the right spot. Now the hard part is trying to keep it there after 500 miles.
So is that your biggest concern going into the race, the mistakes, or something else?
Mistakes can be from, what you do yourself, or even outside chance of, maybe having a bit of bad luck. But you can't control those things. You just got to try and do the best job that you can. And at the end of the day, if you know that you've given it your best shot, then that means something. But hopefully it means that you're drinking some milk.
And don't forget, the last time this guy was on pole, 2008, we rolled into victory lane and drank the milk. Thanks, Scott.
Jan, thank you. So these athletes like Scott Dixon, they endure great pressure, great stress, long periods of focused concentration during today's race. They will actually each lose anywhere from 7 to 10 pounds during the course of this race. So extreme conditioning is certainly required. Fan favorite Tony Kanaan gives us an inside look now at how he stays in shape for this grueling, demanding sport of Indy racing.
Examine the physical demands of one of the fastest sports in the world, IndyCar racing at over 200 miles per hour, we brought in the winner of the 2013 Indianapolis 500, Tony Kanaan. When we tested Tony's reaction time, he was able to swipe 54 random flashing sensors in just 30 seconds. And on average, he reacted in just a quarter of a second, one of the fastest ever recorded for this test. And when we tested Tony's reflexes again after an intense workout, he was able to hit 4 more sensors and even cut down his average reaction time by about 7%. To cope with the physical demands of a 3-hour race, Tony must also have incredible muscular endurance, especially in his neck. Because when you're pulling 4 Gs around a curve 800 times, your 10-pound head effectively weighs 4 times that, about 40 pounds. What kind of competition do you think can gauge your neck strength versus mine?
Here you go. I mean, we have plenty of things to do and see what's going to happen.
But before we squared off, we wired up Tony with an electromyography system, or EMG, to monitor the electrical impulses in his muscles. Then, we competed in neck lifts.
Looking forward, now looking down, even my mom can do it.
And finally, one of Tony's favorite training exercises, watching TV. What are the ground rules here?
Basically, you gotta hold it longer than me. Don't touch your head. That looks like you're uncomfortable already.
I am a little uncomfortable.
Well, that's your problem. You want a pillow?
I want a pillow. As the competition continues, our muscles begin to fatigue and intensely contract. This effectively reduces oxygen available to our muscles, leading to a production of metabolites and lactic acid. While the production of these chemicals creates a burning sensation in my neck, Tony appears to be unaffected.
You're like,
And data from our sensors reveal that as a result of intense training, Tony's muscles fatigue at a rate 27% slower than the average humans. This is why he's able to hold this position for more than 3 hours at a time. And I collapse in just 16 minutes and 12 seconds. Now, the couch test really is one of Tony's training exercises. If you don't think it looks tough, try watching the entire Indy 500 like that, then call me and tell me how you feel. For ESPN Sports Science, I'm John Briggs.
Folks, without a doubt, fitness is the key to a driver's success here in IndyCar racing. Now, a few years ago, we mounted cameras on the car to take you inside the cockpit and let you see what the driver sees. But today, we go one step further with our cutting-edge biometric telemetry. We're going to take you inside the driver and give you a sense of what they feel. Now, we're here in the Schmidt-Peterson garage with driver James Jakes, who starts 19th today. And James, if you'd be so kind as to unzip your fire suit, we're going to show you. He is wearing a biometric sensor just beneath his left breast, down about the base of the heart. Now, when this sensor is turned on, it's going to give you live vital sign data that you will be able to see on your screen at home. Heart rate, respirations, and calories burned. So here's how it works. The cameras on the car will show you where he is in traffic or negotiating a very busy pit road. This sensor will give you an idea of how stressed he is in terms of heart rate and respirations. James, thanks so much for helping us today. Good luck, by the way. And folks, this should be fascinating for us to watch and for you at home. Now, Biometrics is all about the numbers, but here are some very special numbers that will help us define this day.
There are 86,400 seconds in a day. There are 12,600 seconds in the race. There are 800 turns, 33 drivers, but there's only one trophy.
Welcome back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Indy 500, the greatest spectacle in all of racing, where dreams will be made and hearts will be broken. So racing at Indy, we know, is a family tradition for a few famous clans. That includes the Andrettis. For years, patriarch Mario and his son Michael had taken the trip down Gasoline Alley. This is the 10th year Mario's grandson Marco will attempt to win this race, a win that has eluded the Andrettis since 1969.
My journey didn't begin on the bricks of Indy. It started here on the hills of Nazareth. I wasn't around when this happened.
Mario Andretti, winner of the 1969 500-mile race.
But I've heard the stories, I've seen the film. It's always here, always around me. People think this journey is about my family, but my family knows that this is my road. They're behind me all the time. My grandfather's Indy journey ended in 1994. Dad has his own history with this place.
The engine has let go. Michael Andretti out of the 500.
10 years ago, I started my run at Indy.
Marco Andretti.
And for 10 years, I've had my chances.
Marco Andretti, Hornish, who's gonna win? At the stripe, it's Hornish! Hornish wins!
10 years, waiting for one moment.
Oh, we've got a crash! We've got a car upside down. It's Marco Andretti. The curse continues.
It's taken me 10 years to get back to this point. And this is my next step.
Marco said he thinks patience has helped him this past season. Marco represents the 70th time an Andretti will start this race, but that's not the family with the most starts here. No, that distinction goes to the Unsers with 73 starts. That's the most all time. Another famous family is the Foyts with 38 stars between the trio. And last but not least, the Ray Halls, who continue that tradition today. 21 starts here between Bobby and his son Graham. Graham Ray Hall has merged his love of racing with his personal life. He's engaged to funny car driver Courtney Force of the legendary drag racing Force family. Courtney, yesterday, set a new national funny car speed record at 325 miles per hour. That even beats her father. Maybe that'll inspire Graham. As you're about to see, this couple, set to walk down the aisle in November, is a perfect match. And they're taking speed dating to a whole new level.
I grew up in a racing family. My first suit was a fire suit.
Going to the senior prom, my date wanted me to drive. Until I pulled 4 Gs and he threw up everywhere.
In the high-speed world of racing, it's hard to slow down enough to find that special someone.
Nice to meet you. Let's have some breakfast.
And traditional online dating sites just don't ask the right questions.
How's my bow tie? So, I saw on your profile page that you have 7 wins. More than any other female in funny car history?
There can only be 44!
Which one's your favorite?
Well, I know that you're the youngest driver to win an IndyCar.
On the streets of St. Petersburg, 19-year-old Graham Ray Hall.
But what I really want to know is which brick did your dad kiss when he won Indy in '86?
Indianapolis 500 champion, Bobby Ray Hall.
Now that's a good question.
Finally, a site that caters to couples in the fast lane. One that knows how to embrace a competitive nature.
You can get the next one.
No.
You're embarrassing me.
And is the shortest distance to the winner's circle.
Courtney, will you marry me?
Whoa, that was fast. Yes. I think that's me.
Oh, it was nice to meet you.
Bye.
Welcome to racetothealtar.com, where ladies and gentlemen start their engines.
Let me tell you, if you have seen Courtney Force in action, you know that she has a very unique perspective on the risk that Graham faces today. So as we say, it's not just the drivers, but now that we've moved down to the track, we can see it in the families' faces that they are dealing with the anxiety, the thrill, the fear of every single lap that their loved ones run in hopes of becoming the 102nd face that is etched onto this Borg-Warner trophy behind me. And as we saw last year, dreams can turn into heartbreak in the blink of an eye.
Checkered flag is in the air.
We all know how it ends.
Here comes Castroneves.
But you want to know how we got here.
I saw the whole thing.
the whole thing.
He won't get there.
I'll tell you everything.
I want to tell you how it all got started.
Ryan Hunter-Reay wins the Indianapolis 500.
With 6 laps to go, you know it's on. You know there's no more cooperation from other drivers.
At that point, it's still a crapshoot. You know it was going to be a war from then on to get to the finish.
There was no game plan. It was get to the front, stay there, do whatever it takes to get to the front.
I see his approach. He's getting closer and closer.
The whole race changed with actually this picture here. When Ryan made the move going into turn 3, I think that totally caught Elio off guard.
When you're in the lead, it's you're just a sitting duck.
Hunter-Reay almost clips the grass.
Ryan kind of faked to the outside and then dove to the inside real quick, and I yelled inside, inside.
As soon as he said inside, I kind of froze in my movement.
I knew it was going to be tight. There was definitely a smaller hole there than I thought.
Everything that went through my mind was like, oh my gosh, they're going to crash because they were like really racing hard. I thought, whoa, that's the grass, buddy.
I didn't think in that particular time he would have taken that chance because obviously it was too late in the corner.
In my opinion, that's where the race was won. That messed everything up for Elio's plan, and it fell right into Ryan's lap.
Here they come to the white flag. We'll enter the final lap of the Indianapolis 500.
My nose was ahead by the time we got to start-finish.
Ryan Hunter-Reay for the race lead.
If it comes down to it, he's leading out of the final corner. I could still win the race, because if this was the last lap, I just did it.
At that point, I'm not even trying to resist. I was just trying to set up myself, because I knew it would be decided on the finish line. I just need to come out of turn 4, right in his gearbox, and we're gonna make it happen.
He was closing on me down the back straightaway on the last lap. I saw him coming.
And I'm right behind him. I'm like, I got it. That's it, I got it.
And that yellow car was coming closer and closer and closer. I glimpsed up, I saw the flag.
Please let it be Elio, please, God, let it be Elio. Come on. I just jumped up on the wall to see if I could see them come through start finish, and honestly, all I saw was the yellow car win. I didn't know which one it was.
Checker flag is in the air. Florida's Ryan Hunter-Reay wins the Indianapolis 500.
You actually feel the bricks when you cross it. And that's the point I knew that it was over, it was done. We just won the biggest race in the world.
I was completely speechless. It was tough to lose by 600th of a second.
It was surreal. He's worked. Sorry. And just give him a big hug afterwards was amazing.
You can see how a year later, the emotion of winning is still palpable for Ryan Hunter-Reay's wife, Becky. So they're getting ready to do it all again in less than an hour. The 99th running of the Indy 500 will be underway. You can catch all the action with in-car coverage on ESPN3. It is also available through Watch ESPN. So as you may imagine, the tensions are rising here. The drivers making their way towards the track. There you go, they're pulling their children. They're having a grand time. There he is, the man that tries to make it back-to-backs. Ryan Hunter-Reay with his family, trying to again make history here at Indy. Welcome back to our coverage of the Indy 500. This, of course, a star-studded event. Jordan Sparks will be singing the national anthem soon. Patrick Dempsey of McDreamy fame, former McDreamy, we should say, he's on the red carpet, an avid race fan. He is here to watch all the action. Andrew Luck, Colts quarterback, he's here as well. We know that he knows a thing or two about competition, but would he race at these reaction today. There was perhaps no bigger star than this man you see, David Letterman, who retired last Wednesday. He said that he remembers watching Graham Rahal when he was 4 years old and turned 4. Now he's here to watch him race. Our Rick DeBrule caught up with David Letterman.
Well, Graham Rahal can look to drivers like Ray Haroon, his father Bobby, as the guys who paved the way for him. I get to look at David Letterman. That's because back in 1971, David Letterman was a pit reporter for the very first same-day broadcast on ABC of the Indy 500. Let me get this straight. Yeah. You left the fame and fortune of pit reporting for the Late Show? What were you thinking?
That was a very exciting day for me. It was the first time I had appeared on network television, and Mario Andretti had some trouble between 3 and 4. And I saw him walking back to the pits, and I just screamed at him and screamed at him and screamed at him, and he was nice enough, decent enough to come over and talk to somebody. He had no idea who I was or what I was doing, and I remember I failed to ask him why he was walking and what had happened. And I thought, well, I've just violated the first and only rule of being a turned reporter for the race.
All right, let's talk about what your last week has been like. That Late Show thing actually worked out for you. Finally had your last show. Yeah. What kind of a whirlwind has it been between there and now here at the Indy 500?
Well, it's always great coming here to the Indianapolis 500, regardless of what the week was like. But the week was crazy, and I just can't tell you how gratifying it was. And I would like to again thank everybody who made me and everybody who works on that show feel great and feel like what we've been doing, meant something to some people. So it was greatly rewarding, and I could not have predicted it, but I'm very, very pleased about it.
All right, David Letterman officially retired from the Late Show. He may have gotten a gold watch, but I think what he really wants for retirement is a Borg Warner trophy.
That would be nice. We have one already. It'd be nice to have another one.
There we go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. David Letterman, Indiana native, team owner of Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. The team of Penske and Ganassi, they have a long-standing rivalry, though Penske has 10 more wins in this event. In racing, as in any form of competition, the rule of thumb is keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Rivalries also happen within the teams themselves. Marty Smith sat down with the stars of Team Penske for a roundtable discussion on team dynamics.
See. What's up, boys?
Hey, here you go.
Now it's good to see you, partner.
What's going on? How you doing, my man?
Pleasure.
Hi.
Nice Thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate it.
Mate.
Let's talk some racing.
All right.
First, I just want to talk about your boss. When you guys sign on to drive for Roger, what's the expectation?
Helio doesn't remember.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
40 hertz, brother.
It was a long time ago, but I think everyone knows that Roger, first of all, his team, and he's an icon, in motor racing. So when you sign with Team Penske, you're like, wow, I made it, because all the big names, all the big champions once had opportunity to drive for Roger, and that's the way I felt.
For me, it was so nerve-wracking when I actually got a chance to have an interview with Roger. But it was just the best call of my life.
When you jump in that Team Penske car, you have the best equipment, you have the best car. And quite frankly, finishing second in Team Penske car is never enough.
I think one of the first things that people don't realize is when you run for Team Penske, the number one thing is the team.
Is that because of him? Is that top down?
I think it's just a culture in the team. Every other team you race for, you figure out how you can screw your teammate to beat him.
Yeah.
And here is how can you work better together to achieve that, to win, to beat everybody else.
But it can't always be easy when you're on the racetrack together. When is it hard to be a teammate?
Pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because we have a good relationship, but we want to beat each other.
In my career, it's always been hard to, have a personal relationship and be friendly, because I'm a really friendly person. That's my nature. And then you get in the race car.
Yes.
Well, he doesn't know me that well. So. And then you get in the race car, and all of a sudden you gotta be a killer. You gotta be a killer. There's no friends.
Elio, he's a guy who likes to keep harmony in the team. I haven't found a teammate like that, but he really likes the peace. He doesn't want conflict.
Because I like to come to an environment and have fun like I'm having. I want to win. Yes, I want to beat everybody. But sometimes you got to accept that that day is not your day. We're probably the toughest competitors as well, because we want to finish ahead of each other.
What motivates you guys?
I just love driving, anything. I actually like the team effort. You know, I've never had teammates of this level. They're actually helping me to open doors.
I really find if I don't have tough teammates, I don't take myself to the limit I need. Like, I need people to push me.
So is satisfaction the same as complacency?
Yeah, I guess. That's true, yeah.
I'm the same way as Will. You can always do better. And it's funny because my wife says, you should enjoy it for at least one day.
You don't enjoy it?
But am I satisfied that I won? Yeah, but and then as soon as it's over, you're thinking, okay, what could have done wrong? You know, what did we did right? What did we did wrong? How can we make it better?
Montoya is obviously a talent mofo. Yes, you can say that. Can you say that on TV?
I don't know what that means.
But Simon is a guy, also an amazing talent, and he's more the polite guy. But there was one thing that he was having a hard time to say. It was Juan Pablo's name.
Oh, yeah.
He could not say his name. He was like, Ron.
I can say it. I just didn't know in America, actually, the way that I thought it was the right way. So I just went the
Which
wrong
one's the
way.
way in America?
Like people say Juan in America.
Ron.
But it's Juan.
He was calling me Ron.
Ron.
Is he Ron Pablo Montoya?
Juan Pablo Montoya. He should be, because he was in NASCAR, so Ron would probably work. Ron.
But you know what? It was cool that time because it was the first time that I actually found Juan Pablo upset.
No, come on, Pepe.
You don't
Pepe Le Pew.
See, that's what he does.
Good luck to all you guys. Who do you think's going to win?
Obviously, we are competitors, and as soon as we put the visor down, we're obviously going to try everything we can to finish ahead of each other.
So when it's the last lap and I'm in the lead, don't take me out. Don't
block me.
Don't risk a tough maneuver.
Hey, I'm going to win.
I like it.
That Penske Ganassi dominance I talked about is certainly reflected in the betting odds for today's race. All the favorites are from those teams. If you like to gamble, may I suggest you go with Graham Rahal. Seems the payout might be really good on him. But there is no time for joking here because the intensity is growing with every passing second. These fans have gathered here because on this stage, in moments, they are going to meet the 33 men and women that make up today's race field. For the driver introductions, we now send it to legendary track announcer Dave Calabro.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. First off, our celebrity pace car driver. There he is, five-time Brickyard 400 winner, Jeff Gordon. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've been waiting for. Here is the starting lineup for the 99th running of the Indianapolis 500, the greatest spectacle in racing. Starting on the outside of row 11, making his second start at the 500 from Melbourne, Australia, welcome James Davison. In the middle of row 11, from France, say hello to Tristan Vautier. On the inside of row 11, the 2012 500 pole winner from Sydney, Australia, Ryan Briscoe. Starting on the outside of row 10 from Noblesville, Indiana, please give a warm welcome to the USAC champion, Brian Clauson. In the middle of row 10, one of only two rookies in the field from Monaco, say hello to Stefano Coletti. On the inside of row 10 from Bradford, England, here's Jack Hawksworth. Starting on the outside of row number 9, racing for Team Ganassi, Sebastian Saavedra from Bogota, Colombia. Also from Bogota, Colombia, a rookie starting in the middle of row number 9, say hello to Gabby Chavez. And on the inside of row 9, one of two women in this year's 500, making her fourth start here, Pippa Mann from England. Let's move to row number 8 on the outside, driving for the legendary AJ Foyt, the man from Tokyo, Japan, Takuma Sato. In the middle of row 8, making his 9th appearance in the 500. From California, it's Townsend Bell. On the inside of row number 8, our second driver from Noblesville, Indiana, please welcome Connor Daly. Now to row number 7, starting on the outside, driving for Team Ganassi from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Here's Sage Cara. In the middle of row 7, the 2011 500 pole position winner from Canada. Let's welcome Alex Tagliani. Starting on the inside of row 7, making his 3rd Indy appearance from Leeds, England. Here's James Yates. Turning to row 6 on the outside. Ladies and gentlemen, your defending Indianapolis 500 champion from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Please welcome back Ryan Hunter-Reay. In the middle of row 6, the son of 1986 Indianapolis 500 champion Bobby Rahal. From New Albany, Ohio, it's Graham Rahal. On the inside of row 6, the second woman in the field, making her 5th Indy appearance from Switzerland, it's Simona de Silvestro. We move to row number 5, starting on the outside. One of 5 former winners in the field. Ladies and gentlemen, Juan Pablo Montoya. Starting in the middle of row 5, from California, please welcome Charlie Kimball. And on the inside of row 5 for Team Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing from Spain, it's Oriol Serbia. Row 4 on the outside, the pole sitter. The last 2 years, Indianapolis' very own Ed Carpenter. Starting in the middle of row 4. 2013's 500 runner-up, driving again for Michael Andretti from Colombia, Carlos Munoz. On the inside of row 4, the driver who came so close to winning here in 2011 from California, J.R. Hildebrand. On the outside of row 3, a former Freedom 100 winner, Joseph Newgarden from Hendersonville, Tennessee. In the middle of row 3, competing in his 10th Indy 500 from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, it's Marco Andretti. On the inside of row 3, he comes from another great racing city, Le Mans, France. Let's welcome Sébastien Bourdais. And now to row number 2, starting on the outside. From Sheffield, England, Justin Wilson. In the middle of the second row, 3-time 500 winner, 4-time 500 pole sitter from Brazil, it's Helio Castroneves. And on the inside of row number 2, winner from 2013 from Brazil, TK Tony Kanaan. And now for the front row on the outside from France, please welcome Simon Pagenaud. In the middle of the front row, driving for Penske Racing, let's welcome Will Power. And finally, our pole winner, the 2008 Indianapolis 500 champion from New Zealand, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Dixon. Race fans, there they are. The Indianapolis 500 starting field. Are you ready?
The crowd
for this, the annual photo op reserved for the fastest people on the planet. It captures the one moment before the victor is crowned that catches not only their faces, their smiles, but their hopes. There is only one driver going for a fourth win today. That would be Helio Castroneves. He would join 3 four-time winners at this track. The only 2 men have beaten those numbers, Jeff Gordon and Michael Schumacher. They have 5 wins. Our Rick DeBrule, he's star hopping this afternoon. He's standing by with NASCAR driver Jeff Gordon. Rick?
Yeah, Jeff Gordon has led here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. After all, he's won the Brickyard 5 times, but he gets to do something today he's always wanted to do since he was a kid, and that's lead the Indy 500. Of course, you only get to do it in a pace car, but how cool is that?
Yeah, it's very, very cool. It's such an honor to be here. This is such a special day. I can remember as a kid coming here, and now I'm really going back to those moments and feeling that energy of what it's like the day of the Indy 500. It's very special, and I'm just so thrilled that Chevy and Indianapolis Motor Speedway have asked me to be here and be the pace car driver and be a part of this amazing event.
All right, so this is your last final full-time year in Sprint Cup. Any chance we're going to see you here next year doing what Kurt Busch did and maybe spend a little Sunday here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
Well, no, I'm going to be up in the booth doing some TV broadcasting with Fox, so I'm looking forward to doing that, and that's still going to keep me from any chance of coming here for the Indy 500. So this, I thought, was an opportunity of a lifetime, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm enjoying this moment so much. And then I'm going to head to Charlotte and hopefully go put together a great race tonight.
All right, Jeff Gordon once again doing the double, although it's pace car and racing today. Lindsay?
Thanks, Rick. Dario Franchitti, he's retired, but he said this morning he was in the meeting in the hauler when Chip Ganassi was pumping up the team. He said he was funny until the end when he said, by the way, it's the biggest race of your lives, gentlemen. Franchitti, though retired, still feels the pull and the pulse of this magical place and race.
Indianapolis, the racing capital of the world, the Speedway, the Brickyard. You know all the nicknames, but what does the Indianapolis Motor Speedway mean to a racer? Indy means history. Every lap you run, all month long, following in the tire tracks of your heroes. Those heroes had success. They also had failures. Indy means obsession. Here, there is no satisfaction. You lead a lap, and you want to lead all the others. Even if you win, the celebration is short. And you're already thinking, how am I going to win the next one? The place looks so simple. It's just a flat rectangle, right? But it's the most difficult track in the world. At Indy, there is no compromise. What does Indianapolis mean? It's elation, it's insomnia, it's chill, it's milk, it's the wreath, it's faces in silver. Jimmy Clark, Parnelli, AJ, Mears, the Unsers, Mario, me, and our friend Dan. What does Indy mean? Indy means everything.
Dario Franchitti joined by another legendary driver, 4-time winner AJ Foyt. You see here another driver whose life was changed at this track. Coming up on this Memorial Day, an Indiana soldier who gave his life in service of his country. The story of his journey home when we come back. Welcome back to the Indianapolis 500, an American tradition each and every Memorial Day weekend. Chevy Silverado is leading the way for the ceremonial military lap today. Chevy and its dealers proudly support Military Appreciation Month. For more information, go to ChevySalutes.com. The expression, only in America, applies to so many things. And we are here to enjoy one of the most American experiences there is, the Indy 500. But that phrase applies as well to the respect we as a nation show our fallen heroes, even on their journey home.
dignified transfer is really the opportunity for us to bring the fallen home. Throughout the process, they've always got an escort with them. That escort's sole mission is to ensure that the fallen is returned to their loved one with dignity and honor. They are never left alone.
This was the first truck that Aaron ever bought. He liked speed. Stock car racing, truck racing, it's what he loved. But he wanted to fight for his country. He believed that was his right. We had the conversation, said, you don't have to go. His last words about that was, well, Dad, if I don't go, then who's going to go?
About 11:30 that night, we had the knock on the door, and that's when we got the news that he had been hit by I think it was propelled launchers.
I received a phone call just asking me if I would be willing to perform the duty of returning Specialist Fields back to his family here in Indiana. I kept thinking Specialist Fields, but the second I saw the casket and I put my hand on it, I just said, okay, Aaron, I'm gonna take you home now. I told him his mother was waiting for him.
He came in off the plane in his casket with the flag. And then we brought our son home.
I can only imagine what it must be like to bury her son.
He was just a good kid. And I know at 27, you don't think that as a kid, but he was just a good kid.
He will never forget what he had fallen for. All of our men and women who have fallen, we should live and cherish our freedom because they gave it to us. They fought for it and they died for it.
Welcome back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway as the excitement continues to build. Hundreds of thousands of fans have made their way to their seats, the drivers making their way to the track. Before we look down the track, it is time to look to the heavens. We send it once again to our track announcer, Dave Calabro.
Race fans, please stand and remove your hats for today's invocation. Please welcome Indianapolis Archbishop Joseph Tobin.
Gracious and merciful God, all times and seasons are of your making. Every day is your gift. We are grateful that you bring us together today to enjoy the greatest spectacle in racing. Even as we thank you, Lord, our hearts turn to you in petition. Please bless us with a safe contest. Preserve the drivers, crews, and spectators from all harm. Help each team to do its best and to live with the result. As we thank you for this race, a gift which Indianapolis shares with the world, we offer our best wishes to these drivers who help to represent the human family and bless them in their native tongues. Godspeed, boa sorte, buena suerte, in bocca al lupo, bon route, gambaro. Be with us as we make our way home. And if it be your will, assemble us again next year to celebrate the 100th running of this great race. To you belong all ages, in all glory, forever. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you now to turn your attention from the Speedway to the outer stratosphere as we send it all the way up to the International Space Station for the introduction of our national anthem.
Good afternoon. I'm NASA astronaut and International Space Station Commander Terry Virts. Welcome to the 99th running of the Indianapolis 500, the greatest spectacle in racing. As IndyCar fans come together worldwide this Memorial Day weekend, the Space Station crew is racing overhead at 17,500 miles per hour, performing world-class science. Please join me today in giving an out-of-this-world welcome to recording artist and former American Idol winner Jordan Sparks as she performs our national anthem.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed. And the rockets red, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet
sparks with our national anthem. Eyes to the sky in turn 4. Today's flyover, 10C Warthog flyover conducted by the Airmen at the 122nd Fighter Wing, Indiana Air National Guard, the Black Snakes. Based out of Fort Wayne, among 300 Hoosier Airmen recently returned from overseas. Operations Inherent Resolve, Enduring Freedom. Let's give it up. Attention along pit lane. Drivers, to your cars. Drivers, to your cars.
The stage is set. The drivers strapping into their race cars for the 99th running of the Indy 500, preparing to test the limits as well as testing their endurance at speeds of 230 miles per hour. To take you right into the action, we want to get one last report from our reporters on pit road, beginning with Jan Beekes. Jan?
And Lindsay, as the drivers make their way to the cars, it's a good time to look closely at these cars because they look different this year. Honda and Chevrolet have been able to develop their own aerodynamics or aero kits, body panels, wings. Carlos Munoz getting ready for his car, but at the back, this is a Honda. The easiest way to tell the cars apart today, Chevrolet to Honda, are these rear winglets. They'll be on the Honda. Again, the opposite of an airplane, you're not looking for lift. You want downforce to give you stability in the corners. Right alongside, Ed Carpenter's getting ready to get in his car. This, of course, is a Chevrolet. Kind of a minimalist approach. You can see how sleek this is at the back. A very small rear wing. The whole idea, keep this as slippery as possible. But Rick DeBrule, this has added one more unknown to the equation.
Well, Jan, one of the things that is known this month is the Chevys have generally been faster than the Hondas. One guy driving a Honda, well, it's Marco Andretti, but he says he's not too worried. That's because he feels he's got a secret weapon in his pit box. This year, his father, Michael Andretti, is back calling his race. How important is that? Well, think about this. Just a year ago, it was Michael who called Brian Hunter-Reay's race, the strategy to get him to the victory circle. And today, Marco's hoping that Michael can do the same thing for him. Dr. Jerry Punch?
Well, folks, if you're looking for a dark horse to maybe pull off the upset, why not 20-year-old Sage Corum? Folks, a year ago, he made his IndyCar debut in this very race with an impressive 9th place finish. Today, he drives for the potent Chip Ganassi team, and he's wearing our biometric telemetry. You see now the heart rate already over 110. Respirations are climbing. Why? Because this is one of the most stressful times of the day for a driver. They are buckling in. They are alone with their thoughts, and the engines have yet to fire. Sage just told me, my heart is pounding, and it is very, very hard to breathe. Now, we hope those of you at home will take a deep breath because the green flag is just moments away. When we return, the pomp and pageantry of pre-race continues.
Welcome back to our Indy 500 telecast presented by Firestone. We are right there. We are roughly 10 minutes away from the green flag signaling the start of this race. The greatest challenge to the driver's skill, heart, and nerve.
There's definitely a certain feeling and an energy when you come into this racetrack. The moment you come in here, you can feel it. It demands respect.
For me, I come here for the pure spectacle of racing.
That's what I live for, to go after the greatest race in the world.
It's about history. And it's also destiny.
You don't race slow. You don't race comfortable.
You know, we do 2 football fields per second. And once you get above 200, you start to feel every mile per hour.
You're feeling the turbulence of the wind.
You know, you almost have to look absolutely out of control, right at the absolute limit of the machine.
To try to get your eyes to adjust to just how fast you're going. You just hope that nothing goes wrong, because if it does, there's very little time to ever react.
And all of a sudden, the car that you thought was the best car you've ever driven has changed into a complete beast that wants to kill you.
When you make a mistake in an IndyCar, it hurts.
I think the first thing to do is not to think about it.
We've got a car upside down. It's Marco Andretti.
We don't sit down and think, if I crash, what's going to happen to me?
You know, it's one of those things that you accept. If you're going to do this job, you're going to lay your life on the line and you're going to put it all out there to win.
It's the best job in the world. You know, what makes it worth taking the risks? Honestly, it's just the feel of victory.
You can win this race, your name goes into the racing gods.
You feel like a superhero and you become a legend.
You know, I've been chasing this most of my racing life. It would definitely make my career.
I feel that I have a great opportunity again to do something really special. Just gotta believe it.
It's gonna be the guy who takes the most risk and is willing to end his race to get to the front.
Like, this is the only thing that matters to me. These other guys are trying to steal the one big opportunity in my career, and I'm not gonna let them have it. The Indy 500's on the line.
Ryan Hunter-Reay trying to win back-to-back Indy 500s. So now we take time to acknowledge someone who is not back this season. The legendary Jim Nabors not singing back home again in Indiana. So we begin a new era in the Indy 500 tradition and extend a warm welcome to the a cappella group, a 10-member group formed at Indiana University's Straight No Chaser.
Tradition, the annual singing of Back Home Again in Indiana. Please welcome Indiana's own Straight No Chaser.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining through the sycamores for me. The newborn hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana.
Indiana's own Straight No Chaser. Ladies and gentlemen, for the most famous words in all of motorsports, please welcome Mary Holman George.
Ladies and gentlemen, please start your engines.
Dixon is a three-time IndyCar champion, but he readily admits he would trade all three of those titles for 3 wins here in the coveted Indianapolis 500. The last time Dixon earned the pole here was 2008, and he went on to dominate the race, leading 115 laps to the victory. Dixon hoped his start from the pole today is an omen of things to come later on this afternoon.
Here's Rick the rule. Well, race car drivers will tell you that timing is everything. Just ask Helio Castroneves. 3 times he has had a timing perfect, winning the Indianapolis 500s. But think about this, he could be a 5-time champion except for 36 hundredths of a second. Back in 2003, he was second by less than 30 hundredths. Last year, 6 hundredths of a second. That's why today he knows that every pit stop, every lap, every second matters.
Lindsay, thank you, and a brief moment of drama again on the grid. That's Alex Tagliani driving the 3rd A.J. Foyt racing entry that has not fired and moved away from the starting grid. We'll keep our eyes on that story as the rest of the field begins the 3 parade and 1 pace laps before the green flag waves. And hello from inside the pagoda, the electric moment as we get ready to start this great Indianapolis 500-mile race, joined by the 1998 winner, Eddie Cheever, 2-time runner-up Scott Goodyear, 2 men who know all about what it's like to roar into turn 1 at the start and to race for the win here. This race this year could be a little different. The last several have been terrific, but the changes to the cars that were just documented for you might make things look a bit different.
And Alan, the drivers are saying that these cars are a little tricky to drive, so I think what we're going to see today is that they're going to try and get past the car in front by drafting, and to do that, they've got to get a little closer than previous years. I think it's going to be very confrontational going into the turns because drivers are going to have to work harder inside the cockpit, Eddie, to make that pass successful.
And that confrontation is going to be done right at the last moment. They can't start these passes early because the cars will not allow them to do that. So you're going to see a lot of last-minute dive bombing. And having driven in here, there's nothing I want less than have somebody trying to pass me in those last 100 feet turning into a corner.
So the end of each one of these straightaways, twice a lap for 200 laps. An opportunity for some drama.
I can't get my lap back. Restart it fast.
The question for Tagliani is not that the engine won't start, it's that he can't get it into gear. That's the report up from pit lane. So again, we continue to monitor the status of the 48 car. Leading the field, the Honda 2-seat IndyCar, driven by none other than Mario Andretti, and you can enter at shophonda.com for a chance to start a Verizon IndyCar Series race in that machine. In the seat occupied today by funny man Adam Carolla. I wonder if he's fired off any jokes to keep Mario laughing on these parade laps. To pit road at Jan Beekens.
And now consider Juan Pablo Montoya as the field flashes by for the first time, bringing it up to speed. Juan Pablo has a lot more work to do than his Penske teammates. He qualified only 15th. And then on Carburation Day, the final practice, they spent 25 minutes of the session trying to solve an engine problem. So he didn't really have time to get the aerodynamic trim or the balance the way he likes it. So they know they have a long way to go, and he has a car that he doesn't know how will perform in traffic. Alan?
Montoya certainly one to keep an eye on, Jan, from the middle of this 33-car field. And at the front of the field, leading it to the green, the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 Supercar, the Indianapolis 500 pace car for 2015. For more information, you can go to Chevy.com/Corvette. And the man behind the wheel, somebody who knows all about leading laps here, 5-time Brickyard 400 winner, Jeff Gordon.
You think he knows his way around here?
What a thrill for him. He said he always wanted to come and run Indy cars in this racetrack. After very successful in the stock cars. What a thrill this must be for him.
We have onboard cameras in more than a third of the field for this race. Ryan Briscoe, subbing for James Hinchcliffe, has our Lucas Oil on board. And Takuma Sato has a Honda on board on his A.J. Foyt machine. James Jakes carrying the MediaTek on board, as well as our biotelemetry. And Graham Rahal has the Steak and Shake onboard camera. Last year's winner, Ryan Hunter-Reay, with the AutoNation on board. We just talked about Juan Pablo Montoya. He's got the Verizon on board. He's certainly one of the drivers to keep an eye on today. Charlie Kimball has the Letterman Flex Touch on board. And hometowner Ed Carpenter with the Firestone on board. Marco Andretti, the third-generation driver with a Mutual of Omaha on board. And the 3-time winner trying to become 4 and join that rarest of clubs, Helio Castroneves with a Chevy on board. Tony Kanaan has the NTT data on board, the 2013 winner, starting inside row number 2. And on the pole, Scott Dixon, carrying a Verizon onboard today. He will lead the field to the green flag. Tagliani's been refired and driven away, but that is coming from the back of Connor Daly's machine, and that doesn't look good.
And he's going particularly slow.
In case there's a fire, the bottle's coming towards you.
What a shame for him, a local driver. There you can see, obviously, there must be some leak, a little bit of a fire in the back of that car. Connor from Noblesville, Indiana, not far from here, one of the two local drivers that are in this event. Brian Clauson being the other. See, the spotter just told him that he had a fire in the back, so he pulled off into the access lane. What a shame for that young American driver.
Very sad to see that. He'd had a great month till now. I don't think they'll be able to repair that and get him back in the race, Scott.
Well, as you know, a lot of times with any heat or flames, Eddie, a lot of times some damage to the car, maybe even some wiring harness, so that's going to be very difficult for him. He's done a great job all month. A lot of local support. His dad, Derek, had raced Formula 1 in IndyCar, so shame for that.
Looking for Spanish language commentary of this Indianapolis 500, find it by activating the SAP button on your television, presented of course by ESPN Deportes. So a 2.5-mile racetrack. To get 500 miles, you will circle this place 200 laps. They'll stop every 29 to 32 laps for fuel. Despite a dire forecast for rain about a week ago, it is perfect today, and the threat of rain isn't expected to reach here until late night tonight, well after the race is over. And atop the flag stand, ready to wave this field off, racer, as well as Hollywood star Patrick Dempsey, who will wave this green flag in just one more lap.
In the booth visiting with us just a little while ago. He's headed to Le Mans after this event, heads there next week, and will be racing in Le Mans for the 24-hour here in 2 weeks' time.
And while the field forms up for the start, just a moment to say hello, salute, and welcome all of our U.S. servicemen and women stationed around the world and their families watching today's Indianapolis 500 via the Armed Forces Network, including the folks that you saw earlier during the salute at Combined Joint Task Force operation in the Middle East. Thank you so much for your service in defending our freedom. So this moment, a half a lap from the green, is like what?
You are totally focused on one thing. I have to get past that first corner, so there's nothing else in your mind other than that.
The traditional 11 rows of 3, minus 1. And the massive crowd that has filed in to see this 99th running of the Indianapolis 500. The field is coming to the green. The sights and sounds of the start of Indianapolis are yours.
Get ready, stay with them here. Green.
From Nazareth, Pennsylvania, who many folks, including me, thought had a terrific car and an opportunity to maybe contend for the win, is crashed in the first corner. Ryan Briscoe also turned around in the stack-up.
It is so difficult that first corner. You can't really see where you're going because there's a lot of turbulence in front of you. You always have to react to the cars around you. It is terrible to see the drivers after a whole 2 weeks of trying to practice to get caught up in a first corner accident like that. And Sage had done such a great job.
Now, if you watch what's going on here, the number 8 car of Sage Karam, you're going to see him in the middle of the track. He's doing the right thing, but on the outside's the 14 of Takuma Sato. Now, Sage Karam does not expect him to be on the outside, so he's trying to give some room to the 28 of Ryan Hunter-Ray that was on the inside of Sage Karam, and he ended up taking both of them out. Now that, like I said, is not a fault of the yellow car, Sage Karam. He does not expect the 14 of ABC's car, Takuma Sato, to be there.
Yellow, 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 outside, outside.
See, Briscoe got hit by James Davison in the 19 car as he was slowing down. Here's Sato's on board.
That's just a bad bet to be passing a car in the first corner on the outside because the room just keeps diminishing.
You know, we always talk about that. You cannot win the Indy 500 in the first turn on the first lap, but you sure can lose it, and that's exactly what happened today.
So Briscoe's been refired and kept going. You saw Karam out of his car, and in that last replay from Sato's on board, you saw one of the pieces of the left front suspension damaged on the 14 machine. So just as happens a lot in the early laps of this race, trouble in the opening corners. Sato, Karam, Briscoe involved. Yellow out early at Indy. Back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the 99th Indianapolis 500-mile race under caution before they've even finished a mile and a half. As trouble on the start between turns 1 and 2 has claimed a list of cars, in addition to a couple who had troubles before the race even began. Here's the incident.
The outside, absolutely. You can see the ABC car of Takuma Sato trying to go around the outside. And Eddie, you said when we were at commercial, in the gray, somewhere you just don't want to be, especially on the first lap of the race. I mean,
he's running out of space here already. There's no place, Scott, for him to go. That is a result of a very bad qualifying session. He carried that through to the race, and he tried to make up ground too early. And now the 14 car is out.
And he's taken out one of the, I thought was a great contender, the number 8 of Sage Karam, young American that's 20 years old from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. You can see the impact there. I mean, everybody in this whole paddock was talking about Sage as a race contender.
So Tagliani with the early troubles that you heard about on the pace laps. Connor Daly with his problems that has taken his car out of the race already. Tagliani has continued. And then the crash with Karam and Sato. They've repaired Sato's car, sent him back onto the racetrack, though he is now 2 laps down to the race leaders. A lot of cleanup still to be done. The restart coming up from Indianapolis in a moment. Cleanup just about complete from the first corner accident here in the Indianapolis 500. Our telecast presented by Firestone. We're going back racing in one more lap. We're also going back racing next weekend here on ABC with this Verizon IndyCar Series, a doubleheader for you both Saturday and Sunday afternoon at Belle Isle in Detroit. The Duel in Detroit, Saturday and Sunday, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. Updates on some of those who had early problems. Jan?
Yes, Connor Daly, as you saw, had a fire underneath his car before the green ever took place. The team said it was related to the exhaust system getting hot, and that is what caused the fire. So unfortunately, he couldn't get it back to effect repairs and start that fire. Alan?
Heartbreaking. So out of the Indianapolis 500 before the green flag, and now another driver out of the 500 before completing 2 corners. That would be Sage Karam. Quick reminder, download the IndyCar 15 mobile app and get live streams from in-car cameras and more from Verizon. Verizon camera today on board the race leader, Scott Dixon's car, as he comes out for the restart. They have just waved off the start. They have waved off the start, and apparently Juan Pablo Montoya has some sort of a problem. Well, there it is. He's had contact with someone that has ripped that fender guard off his right rear tire.
That's a big piece of bodywork. You have to come in and take that off. There is no way you could continue running with that.
Drive through.
And Simona Di Silvestro following him down the pit lane, but they've been instructed to go through because they've pitted on a closed pit lane, and there will be a penalty if they stop now.
Now let's just hope that piece doesn't fall off when he's on the track.
Might be to his benefit, because if it falls off, he'll have to send somebody out to clean it up, and he'll get time to make repairs. If it doesn't fall off, they're going to send this race back green.
If I was the car behind him, I'd keep some safe distance, because that's a very big piece of bodywork.
Well, he's probably been hit from another car previously, so there's got to be another car that's out there with a front wing damage somewhere, I would expect. Jan, you have more?
I have Sage Karam, more on Sage. He's just been released from the medical center. And Sage, first of all, you okay?
Yeah, all good. It's just a soft hit, you know, just kind of got up in the wall and just kind of rode it a little bit, but yeah, tough break.
What happened there? Did you know that Sato was on your outside?
I knew going into turn one he had a run, but I didn't think he was dumb enough to go actually on the outside. You know, me and Hunter Ray, we're side by side, which is pretty much protocol, you know, around here going into turn one, at least be too wide. We're racing each other hard and racing each other clean. And Sato, you know, he's a veteran in the series, a little bit better than that, and decides to make it 3 wide and ruins a lot of guys' races. The guy needs to wake up a little bit.
Obviously, a very frustrated Sage Karam. Alan?
And rightfully so, after his entire month's preparations are out the window in the first couple of corners.
And that piece did fall off.
Yeah. And the yellow extended, and here come Montoya. And the driver, I think, was involved in the contact with him, Simona Di Silvestro, who was following Montoya down the pit lane. If you look closely at the left front wing of the 29 car, I believe it's missing that upright piece on the left side of the 29.
Now, Scott, this is not a piece. This is not a piece you can run without, can you?
And this is something that these teams train for. They'll have a spare wing complete, as you can see it, not only with the wing, but also what they call those rear bumper guards, which is the piece that was dangling around the back of the car, which then fell off. Those are already preset to the settings that needs to be done that the team is running on before.
We good? All right, let's go. Good job.
The servicemen, after changing the front wing on Simona's car.
So it looks like they both got out without losing a lap.
Very strange beginning to this race, I will say. And it's a little bit strange, Alan, because what ends up happening is that you are mentally prepared to start this race and get yourself into a rhythm. And now we've had this situation where we've not really got up to speed and gotten into that rhythm. And you know what that's like, Eddie. It sort of throws you off just a little bit.
But at the same time, question for you, you're all juiced up for the start of the race. Now you've had these 9 laps under the yellow flag. Does that settle you down more for this restart? And you're also going to be single file instead of 3 wide.
I think it does. I think the start on a single file is a lot easier, obviously, than 3 in a row.
So still cleaning some things up. We'll come back for the restart after this from your ABC station from the Indianapolis 500. Getting ready to go green flag racing, or attempt to anyway, here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The turn 1 crash, then a crash under caution has extended this yellow for all, and they just waved off the start again. So we're going to be another lap under yellow before we go green.
Nobody at this point has any idea what sort of a car they have, Alan, because the track is hotter than it was the last time they ran it on carburation day, so I suspect they're getting very frustrated.
All right, so let's, the waving off of the green gives us the opportunity to show you what we found that happened between Juan Pablo Montoya and Simona Di Silvestro.
Now this is under yellow. So under yellow, your only job is to keep the pace. Obviously, Montoya is trying to slow down to not hit the car in front of him. And Simona just, I guess, was not paying attention, maybe from a lack of experience, or she was looking at her dials, and she just hit the side of his car.
And there goes the piece from Juan Pablo Montoya's car, and the former winner of this race has been on pit lane several times under this yellow, Jan.
Yes, and you saw the first time as they changed the whole rear section of the bodywork. The second time was simply to top up on fuel. Obviously, if you've lost track position, you're near the back of the pack, why not take on fuel and run a different fuel strategy? They have not lost a lap. They don't feel there's any other damage to the car other than the bodywork, so Juan Pablo Montoya is good to go. Alan?
And this is a driver we want to follow. When Montoya is last in the field at Indianapolis 500, he's a guy you want to keep your eyes on.
So we'll try this again, but instead of being 3 abreast at the start, they'll be single file with Scott Dixon leading the 10th Indianapolis 500 that he's led, tying in with his teammate Tony Kanaan for most among active drivers. And here we go.
Green.
Pagano on power for second.
A lot of cars running two abreast.
So it's Dixon, Power, Pagano, Kanaan, and Justin Wilson running in fifth. For second place, Simon Pagano trying to pass his Penske teammate Will Power again.
And he completes it perfectly. He tried that going into one, Scott, a lap earlier, and both of them were running side by side the whole way around.
Something Roger Penske, the team owner, probably doesn't want to see both his team cars doing that on the very first lap. A lot of dicing going on in the back section. Guys trying to make up some team. The two ABC cars that you can see, Takuma Sato, who was involved in that first lap incident, and his teammates following right behind him, Jack Hawksworth.
And Montoya is right behind, and he has to start passing cars.
Someone's in a hurry.
That was Tristan Vautier, who was in that 18 car for this race. Did not qualify it. The scheduled driver in that car, Carlos Huertas, was declared medically ineligible with an inner ear problem. So Vautier, who qualified the other Dale Coyne racing machine, the 19 car, got out of his European racing commitment for the weekend and came back to compete in the 500.
Now what Dixon needs right now is for Kanaan to pass Pagano. If he passes Pagano, the two of them can work together and put some distance, Scott, between the group that's following him. Today's going to be all about drafting strategy.
And then Dixon and Kanaan are teammates on target Chip Ganassi Racing. The second car in line that you see, Simon Pagano, is for Team Penske. The fourth car in line is also a Penske machine. Look at that throttle trace right there. That is great because he's behind traffic in front of him, which means he's confident with the feeling of his car. Watch the gear ratio here. You'll probably see him click 6. There he goes. So close to the car in front to complete that pass. He might get 2. No.
Now that was perfect driving. He passed it. Now he's going to put Pagano in a little bit of a problem and create some distance between Dixon and the two of them.
Kanaan set fast lap of the race on that last circuit, 223.9 miles an hour all the way around.
Scott, he was going so fast in that tow when he passed Pagano, he almost ran into the back of Dixon. So he had to take his foot off, and when he did that, he created a problem for Pagano.
Which is great to see because these guys have wondered how these cars are going to be working in the draft. Now that we see with two cars in front, you can really get a great tow.
But Scott, that comes back to what you were talking about just before the start of the race, how the draft is kicking in its strongest late down the straightaway this year compared to last.
Well, Alan, did you see how close he got to the car in front of him? I mean, previously, we'd give ourselves a little bit more room, have a little bit more safety factor. The guys have all been saying, I can't do that, so they're just hoping they don't miss time and end up clipping their wing to the car in front.
If there's a way, they will find it.
So Dixon, Kanaan, Pagano with now Power back to 4th place. Juan Pablo Montoya restarted in 30th position, and he's picked up 5 spots already, some of them in reasonably aggressive and opportunistic fashion. Watch this.
Look at all of these cars. This place is not that wide. You want to stay off the green stuff.
Not much traction on the grass.
Chip Ganassi must be smiling right now. He has both of his cars in the lead, and Kanaan is now past Dixon. And Dixon's...
Yeah, you can see he doesn't have the speed mid-turn, so something's changed on his car. Everybody has talked about this new cars this year. that the bullseye spot, the sweet spot as they call it, to make the car handle is smaller, meaning that if the temperature changes a little bit or your handling goes off, tire pressures change, sometimes you can throw the handling off on how your car gets around the corner. A little less grip, maybe that's what he's got.
So Tony Kanaan, hugely popular among this crowd here at Indianapolis, is the second leader of the race, Doc.
Yeah, in Friday's carb day final practice, TK was not happy. Tony Kanaan told his team, I am not happy. I can't pull up on people. I can't pass people. He begged them to change the gear on Sunday morning. They changed the gears this morning. He said, you give me gear, and I will give you the lead. I will pass people. And now he's under attack by his teammate.
I don't think that's so much of an attack. That's a good strategy. If Dixon has a run on him, Kanaan should let him go by, because now Kanaan can draft on Dixon. And if they do it in a methodical manner, they can put distance between them and the rest of the field.
I'm not so sure that Pagenaud might not gobble him up first, because he seems like he's getting a bit of a run here. Let's watch.
Pagenaud's going to be too close to him in the corner.
While we watch this, we check in Pagenaud's pit with Rick.
Well, Doc was just talking about carb day, the final practice, and Pagenaud loved his car on carb day. He said, I could pass everybody out there. He was playing with downforce and figured he had it exactly where he wanted to start the race. Now, important to point out, while he was on the tack a few minutes ago, they came on the radio and said what they call fuel map 4. In other words, go to a different fuel position where you're not burning as much. So if he doesn't want to get too far away from the leader, but at this point he's content to ride around not battling for the lead.
Scott, did you see how much Kanaan closed on Dixon in half a lap?
And for the race lead, Kanaan goes back around.
Kanaan is the guy who has the fastest car right now. And he's using Dixon as a post.
This is usually a segment of the race where you start to get the feeling of the handling of your car. You use some of those cockpit adjustments as the drivers have to change the handling characteristics of the car. You're radioing back to the team to tell them what the car is doing. And you can see Scott Dixon at work on the left-hand side there. Look at the steering wheel. Remember, no power steering, no power brakes in these cars, so he's battling this, very physical inside the cockpit. But he'll be relaying information back to the team, telling them what the car is doing so they can make some wing adjustments or tire pressure changes during the first pit stop.
One thing we have not mentioned is Pagenaud might be in the fuel-conserving mode. So if he can make these two cars ahead of him create a good space for him and he can run with less throttle, he will be putting gas in the bank, so to speak, so he can use it later.
It's one of the common strategies in today's modern IndyCar Series racing. Go as fast as you can, but use as little fuel as you can. Why? Because it's so difficult to gain track position. The less time you're sitting still in your pit box, i.e. the less fuel you need to take, the more cars you can pass on the pit road.
Without doing anything. And that all comes down to the great mechanics you have in the pits. And they are some of the best here.
A second on pit lane at these speeds is 110 yards of racetrack.
Making up 110 yards in one lap is a hard job.
So we've been following this drafting duel for the lead between the Ganassi teammates, Kanaan and Dixon, with Penske teammates Pagenaud and Power right behind them. There's Justin Wilson in the 25 driving for Andretti Autosport, and here's Helio Castroneves running in 6th, Doc.
And prior to climbing in the car, Helio Castroneves was bobbing and weaving and dancing like a heavyweight boxer. That's what he's doing here early in the race. You're going to save your energy, save your car, stay out of trouble, stay in contact with the leaders, but don't get up there and punish your equipment until it is time to go. That's how you win a 4th Indianapolis 500. You take care of everything and make sure you stay out of trouble until it is time to move. Alan.
All right, Doc. Castroneves trying to join that illustrious club of 4-time winners of this great race.
And it sounds like he's taken a page out of Rick Mears' playbook. That's what Rick Mears would do. He would qualify way up front, kind of fade in the first bit of the race, but he got faster and faster, Scott, from the middle of the race to the end. And Castroneves knows where all the little problems that you will encounter in the 500. So he's obviously just trying to learn and save as much of his car as he can.
So third lead change of the race between two drivers, Tony Kanaan and his teammate Scott Dixon, the pole sitter and 2008 winner of this race, trying to take home another baby board. The early stages of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. 99th edition, our telecast today presented by Firestone on a spectacular 82-degree day here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The early laps, a back-and-forth affair between Ganassi Racing teammates Scott Dixon and Tony Kanaan. They have been the only two leaders of the race, and they've swapped the top spot now 4 times between them. Dixon in the red, Kanaan in the blue, and the third-place car in the frame is Penske's Simon Pagenaud. Showed you before the race started our biotelemetry that James Jakes was going to be carrying on board for us today. For way of reference, the average heart rate for a sprinter in that 170 to 185 beats per minute, and Dr. Jerry Punch is watching the data come in from Jake's car.
Yeah, James Jakes talking about the fact that he is an incredible fitness fanatic, and he said he would see 180, 185 or so in the car, and the concern was if it goes over 185 for more than a few laps, it is exhausting for a driver, although he has seen upwards of 200 beats per minute. Right now, Jake's able to make a couple spots on the racetrack, and normally when a driver settles in after the first 25 or 30 laps, the heart rate can come down because they're in a comfort zone, but it will go back up, we expect, when he has to make his first pit stop in 4 or 5 laps.
That'll be interesting to see his heart rate in a pit stop.
You know, it's amazing. We talk about this all the time, Eddie. I mean, this is something that you're doing out here on the racetrack for 2.5 hours. It's not like you go out and do a shift on a hockey rink and then you come back in and get a time to relax. So this is something drivers have to be in shape with. And all the young drivers that I talk to, I explain to them that fitness is one of the most important things. And if you want to see some information about this, Bobby Rahal has put some stuff out there. The website is called Safe as Fast. If you want to understand about training and about driving, he's done a great job to try and help you with this. It's really cool.
I always thought that training was a great idea because it would help you survive an accident. The better shape you're in, the better chance you have of surviving an accident. And the second thing was, if you're panting, you couldn't focus. If you're breathing too hard, you just cannot focus.
Well, as you ride along here with Tony Kanaan, when you think about it, and all these guys, including Tony, has done triathletes, he is a great driver and a great specimen for an athlete, obviously. But if you are starting to get tired inside the car, that means you're starting to go slower. Teams spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just trying to look for 1/10 of a second. You can't be the weak link in this chain there.
I totally agree.
It was fun watching Kanaan hold his head up on the couch. He doesn't sports science.
He doesn't really have a neck. His head just rests on his shoulders.
We talked about Marco Andretti and the incredible record he has here at Indianapolis as far as consistently being in the hunt for the win. Our Honda telemetry shows Marco is up to the 7th position after taking the green flag back there, right about where he started back into the 8th spot. Rick?
Yeah, Marco says that this car is very sensitive to the track temperature. As the track heats up, he says it's going to be dicier. Now, just a little while ago, he was saying that the car is having some understeer, and they're going to have to deal with that. Doc?
And here is Scott Dixon making his first stop of the day. Now, in carb day, in the very first pit stop, he had a wheel gun that failed. They're hoping they don't have the same problem today. They asked Dixon, do you want any wing changes? He said, no, the car is neutral, leave it alone. We'll put 4 tires and get it completely full of fuel. Waiting on fuel, got to get completely full, and now he is full and away.
J.R. Hildebrand, Alex Tagliani, Tristan Vautier also on and off the pit lane on that lap.
These first pit stops are so important for the crew. They have to get that first one out of their system.
Here is Kanaan in after fighting for the lead for most of this race. Doc?
Almost a carbon copy of his teammate Scott Dixon. They asked Kanaan, do you want to change? He quickly said no, changed nothing. Wanted to come in, put 4 tires on, make sure they get it full of fuel. Being very deliberate on these early stops. Not to make a mistake, not to drop a wheel nut, not to have an issue in the pits. Kanaan waiting for fuel, making sure to get it completely full, and he's away, uneventful.
Those 2 pit stop times between the 2 Ganassi cars were almost the same, within 1/10 of a second.
Here's Simon Pagenaud, who took over the lead after Dixon and Kanaan pitted. Rick?
Yeah, Simon Pagenaud says the car is understeering just a little bit, so the plan coming into this pit stop was just to make a minor wing adjustment. Kyle Moyer is the strategist for this team, and I talked to him on Friday. I said, is the car any good? He goes, oh yeah. And it wasn't just the words, it was the way he said it. He feels he's got a potential winner. They make that little wing adjustment, and he's going to get out of here. Doc?
Elio Castroneves, who told us, was being very patient at the beginning of this race. No adjustments, routine stop, 4 tires. The just like they were on carb day. And by the way, they won the pit stop competition. This is the best team this weekend on pit road.
Will Power took over the lead when Pagenaud pitted. Now last year's series champion is coming down the pit lane. There he is, wearing that champion's #1. And headed all the way to the turn 1 end of the pit road. Doc?
And Will Power said he had never felt as comfortable as he has been this year at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Something about finally feeling good about being an oval track racer. He comes down pit road. They've warned him about speeding. Speed limit is 60 miles an hour. They will go to work. They plug in for fuel. Air jack in the back of the car. All 4 tires are on, waiting on the fuel, and he is signaled to leave. Will Power making his first stop for the day.
So that cycles Juan Pablo Montoya to the race lead. He pitted 3 times under that opening caution after getting the damage to the right rear wheel guard and having to change the rear wing. So he's got about 10 more laps of fuel on board than these other people who had not pitted yet. Joseph Newgarden and Charlie Kimball there in that confrontation. Was that your word?
Yeah, it's confrontation, yeah. Sometimes you don't mind it if it's on the last lap, last corner, but it might be a bit too soon for that.
A few more drivers to pit to complete this cycle. Ryan Briscoe is on pit road. Jack Foxworth, Simona Di Silvestro, again, having pitted under the long yellow, can go a bit farther on fuel.
This is going to be a late pass.
Number 6 of J.R. Hildebrand.
And he made it.
Charlie Kimball, and Charlie's a very good competitor, race winner. There's Montoya.
So there is Juan Pablo Montoya.
Hit this lap, hit this lap.
Getting the call.
Now from 225 miles an hour on the straightaways and getting down to 60 miles an hour is an art. Watch him here, he'll stay low, come in, make sure the wheels are on the inside of that white diagonal line, otherwise you'll get a penalty. And
Watch
now he's going to get to 60
look for your
miles
board.
an hour.
We will do the wing.
And you heard on the radio there, oh, he slides past his marks, and it's over the air hose. This is going to cost him a lot of time. They were talking to him about making a front wing change, and he couldn't get it stopped. Oh, after such a great comeback, now he's still got time. That was only a half turn. But that is the way that you lose time in the pits.
That is the way that you lose a 500.
So that could be a quarter distance on the front straightaway, 3 or 4 seconds lost like that. There's a lot of track time you have to make up when you have a stop like that.
So back to the race for the lead. Scott Dixon cycles up to the #1 spot. Simon Pagenaud now between the 2 Ganassi cars. 22 there in second. Cadon back in third.
And he's putting pressure on Dixon.
He wants to lead. He's now with the top team in IndyCar racing, one of the top teams in the world. He said to me the other day, he says, this car is so nice here, and I'm so lucky to be driving for Roger Penske.
So after the opening lap crash and the secondary crash, we're clean through 100 miles from there. Scott Dixon out in front for the moment. The race for the lead at the 99th Indianapolis 500-mile race between Scott Dixon in the red car and the white and red car of Simon Pagenaud. Our telecast today presented by Firestone. We're just across 100 miles of this event. Tomorrow night, Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals on ESPN. Golden State going to try and close out the Rockets in Houston. 9 o'clock Eastern on ESPN, and watch ESPN. Did you see Steph Curry go off last night for 40 points? Coverage starts at 8 with Kia NBA Countdown, then Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals. Golden State and Houston.
So what Pagenaud is doing right now, he is taking all the notes he can on how Scott Dixon's car is performing, and in the process of doing that, he's using less fuel. By less fuel, if they come in at the same time, his fuel stop will be faster than Scott Dixon's. So he's putting as much information as he can into his head as to how close he can run behind Dixon, working towards those last 5 laps, Scott.
They call him the professor, and they always say on that team, everybody has different quality. Juan Montoya probably drives a little harder and stands up in the wheel a little bit more, and certainly Simon is more the quiet guy in
in the team right now, and they nicknamed him the Professor.
You see lap traffic just ahead for these race leaders. Now, during the pit stops, we showed you Juan Pablo Montoya overshooting things and crossing that air hose. He lost 5 seconds for the time to back up, and here's what it cost him on the racetrack.
You know how long it would take you to catch up to that, Scott? If you were running, you'd have to run 2 miles an hour faster than somebody for probably 4 or 5 laps to do that.
You extend yourself, you push yourself out of the comfort zone, your car out of the comfort zone, and you risk going and slicing against the wall. So something Montoya generally doesn't do because such an experienced competitor, including in Formula One.
The race stewards reviewed Montoya running over that air hose. He was given a warning, which was the penalty for that. Also, Simona Di Silvestro, excuse me, was given a warning for avoidable contact for the under caution incident between she and Montoya earlier.
And maybe he was a little bit frustrated because of the problems he had at the beginning of the race, which is understandable. When somebody runs into the back of you under yellow, that's not something you'd expect.
So Scott Dixon leads. The 3-time champion of the Verizon IndyCar Series and 2008 winner of this race. Dixon said he thought that any one of 15 of the 33 starters had a chance to win, but he was confident, though not overconfident, in his team and his car.
This is the first time Scott has had traffic in front of him. He has almost 8 cars that he's going to have to get by. We'll see how his car handles in traffic, and we'll see how well Simon Scott can stick behind him, because this really gets tricky because the air is really, really turbulent at the end of that line. And he gets by the first one. No, he doesn't. Now he had to come out of the throttle there, so we'll see if Pagenaud gets a run on him coming out of 4.
But smartly, see, a veteran knows that he probably could not make the pass completely, so he'll take his foot out of the gas. Now, if that was the last couple of laps and you've got a competitor behind you like Simon Pagenaud, then he would probably risk it, but there's no risk-reward ratio. Remember we talked at the beginning of the show about sometimes it's difficult to get up and get that draft and get the pass completed by the time you get to the turn. Drivers talked about that, and I think that's what we're seeing right now Scott Dixon struggling with.
And there's just not enough gain. Why risk making a mistake when you're in the lead trying to pass a car that you're lapping at this point in the race?
Now both of them will try, or just one get through, see? Just one.
That was brilliant. He waited right to the last minute so Pagenaud could not come by with him. He's going to pass him. Oh, he's passing him in the middle of 4.
That's Tristan Vautier in the 18 car, former Rookie of the Year in the Verizon IndyCar Series. Now Kanaan going after Pagenaud for second and still trying to deal with Vautier in the 18.
And Vautier has no interest at all in letting these cars get by him. If they're going to do it, they're going to have to earn it. If Simon Pagenaud is any closer to Kanaan, he'll be sitting in his lap.
Here's Pagenaud looking inside, turn 3, he'll go through.
And Kanaan says go. There's not enough room here for both of us.
Yeah, he didn't make it easy for him because he took him down the grass mid-straight, but he's a veteran. He left room going in the turn.
But look at the gap Dixon has put after these two, second and third, got caught behind this now lap car, the 18.
Alan, you don't think that was by design, do you?
Opportunistic.
Remember, everybody is working on their plan for those last 10 laps.
Absolutely. Agree completely.
So that was probably plan C. If there's traffic, this is what I'm going to try to do.
And still the leader now with side-by-side lap cars ahead of him.
To get by the Pippa man. Driving the Susan G. Komen car, very bright, very easy to see, doing a great job out here. She comes out about once a year between Indianapolis.
This is very tricky stuff because you're relying on the driver that you're trying to pass to acknowledge that you're there and give you enough room. And sometimes they're so busy with their own line that they can't.
Now Sato is 3 laps down to the race leader. He just followed Kanaan and got around, or separated Kanaan from Simon Pagenaud.
And give his ABC team a lot of credit for having the parts ready, measured correctly, bolted back on, and now the car's out there and seems to be going quite well.
There's Kanaan to the outside of Pippa Man.
Very good driving from Pippa Man to let him go by.
So the 2013 winner, Tony Kanaan, running second, Doc.
Yeah, I just talked to Chip Ganassi. You saw Tony being passed about a lap and a half ago. Tony is called in and said, got to have a half a turn of front wing. Developed a significant understeer on exit, meaning when he turns the car trying to leave the corner, it will not turn.
So the track is changing, Scott. It's getting hotter and hotter, and the car's balance is changing. So all the drivers have to start thinking, what do I need to do? But don't correct it too far, because you don't want to go from a car that's pushing to a car that's loose.
And it also tells you, as we see Scott Dixon now doing a great job working through traffic, it also tells you that he's probably used all his cockpit adjustments and the car is still not responding, so that's why they're asking for changes. But important not to push the car too hard. He'll take the right front tire off of it and then have a huge understeer for the remaining part of his fuel load.
Scott has taken everybody to school on this first group of traffic that they had to approach and get by. It's amazing how fast he cut through all that. And the guy who's right behind him is who? His teammate. So these Ganassi cars work in traffic.
Go back and see what that was that went under the left front tire. That it looked like maybe a rag that was on another car. But in an open cockpit car, when you see something go under the tire, that's got to concern you as a driver, doesn't it?
It does, and if it gets in the way of the radiator, Scott, you're in trouble because the temperature will just start creeping up.
See him working the steering wheel there, that turbulent air off the car in front. You heard him get off the gas. As we rode with him just a moment ago, you saw him take his left hand, push the button. It's either for the drink bottle, taking a drink of water, or possibly rating back to the team, telling him what's going on with the car.
Now this will cost him probably 4 miles an hour on this lap, and you can be sure that Kanaan will have closed the gap because of the fact he couldn't pass that car turning into one.
Watch this and watch the right side of your screen, left side of your screen. What is that? So Coletti's car collects that, kicks it up in the air. Looks like just a empty chip bag or something. All right.
Somebody's lost their Tostitos, Doritos, or whatever those things are.
And the bag's crunch was magnified on the tire of the race car. Never mind. Back to the Brickyard after this from your ABC station. After the opening lap crash and caution, we are green through 155 miles. Of the 99th Indianapolis 500-mile race. Scott Dixon has done most of the leading today in that red number 9 car. There's the gap, first, second, and third. Dixon there, Simon Pagenaud behind him in the white and red car, and Tony Kanaan right there in the blue car. Coming up on another round of green flag pit stops as we clip off this race despite the first 11 laps being run under the yellow at an average, trouble, a car in trouble and into the wall. That is Brian Clauson.
It's so difficult when you don't do a lot of races in these cars to turn up at Indy.
Clauson, the short tracker, carrying the hopes of all the local dirt trackers, making his second appearance in the 500. And his race ends with his car into the wall. And you see the safety team already there.
Now watch this, the 88 of Brian Clauson. As we roll through here, just watch. He's already a little bit high. I think what he was trying to do was trying to give some space to the cars behind because he's been off pace just a little bit. Once you get into that gray section, you lose all grip there. There's no black, there's no rubber, and then he just loses grip, goes up into the wall. But give him credit. He's a guy that comes here once a year. He's only been here twice, and you know, he is a two-time winner of the National Sprint Car Championship, and I watched a little bit of him on television this past winter, knowing that he was coming here again. And those guys can drive cars with high horsepower, no grip sideways. I mean, I'm really impressed with his talent.
Absolutely. He was just in the wrong place. You need to be very egotistical when you're going around turns 4. You don't give anybody any room. That line is yours. If they want you, if they want to, they can pass on the outside. Every time I see that, I remember Schechter, who drove for us, was leading the 500 with 10 laps to go. That's a photocopy of what happened there. And he had the 500 in his hands.
And in this situation here, just like you're talking in that, if you're trying to give somebody some space, it looked like Brian Clauson was trying to do, you're going around here at 225 miles an hour in turn, so he was probably doing 215, 210 mid-turn when it all goes wrong. You can't catch the car. The right front starts to push, it starts to loosen itself, and you feel lightness in the steering wheel, and then you have no control of the car goes in the wall.
No room to be Mr. Nice Guy.
All right, great to see Brian climb out of that car after a few minutes. And so we'll see Clauson go to the medical center for the mandatory checkover by the doctors. And tough to see Brian Clauson out of the race. Now, pit road's still closed, but it's going to get very busy. You see all the crews out there and ready to go to work. It's a long pit lane, but it's not a wide one.
Now, as you see, Dario, he's going to end up coming into his pit lane looking to where he wants to go. See that it's only 6.5 feet wide for your car. You're trying to just really get it in there. Now, he got hit from behind and spun the car completely around, ended up damaging his front wing.
What you have to add is he's going 60 miles an hour when he has to decide to. He can't slow down 300 yards beforehand. You have to get it all done very quickly. We see the pit stops being 8 seconds, Scott, but what we really time is from the moment you're in the pits to the moment you leave the pits. That's the amount of time that really counts in a pit stop.
It puts a lot of pressure on the crew. They train throughout the week. Physical fitness trainers are always in the shops. The shops sometimes have their own physical fitness centers, but certainly these guys practice pit stops each and every week, especially leading up to the Indy 500.
And just to make sure there's no confusion, that video was not Scott Dixon. That was Dario Franchitti from a couple of years ago in the 2012 race. So Dixon leads the field. Around to the opening of pit lane. Pits are declared open. Simon Pagenaud runs second. Rick?
Well, Simon Pagenaud may have had a little bit of trouble with the traffic, but he is having absolutely no problems with the car. In fact, his strategist, Kyle Moore, is on the radio saying, right now we're in a situation where you can pass anybody out on the track. The car is exactly where we want it. A little while ago, they actually told him, you can take the lead if you want, meaning he's been hanging back and saving fuel to get it exactly the way he wants it. Right now, nothing major planned in the way they're going to make this stop, but obviously, they want him back out there as quickly as possible. Doc?
And down below them, Tony Kanaan, you heard him say that we have an understeer on exit. They're going to do a 1/4 turn of front wing. That's Kanaan, the middle picture, to help the understeer. On the bottom of your screen, our leader, Scott Dixon. No problem with the car, but Dixon says he has a problem with water being sprayed on his visor by his brake dude. He's going to do a lot of turns. The race off of pit road, and Dixon will get beat off of pit road.
That was awesome, guys.
So Simon Pagenaud off the pit lane first as the Penske team gets their driver out in front. He didn't go for the lead on the track. His team got it for him, though, on pit road. Back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, wrapping up the second caution of this 99th edition of the 500-mile race. Our telecast today presented by Firestone. Simon Pagenaud is the new leader on the exchange of stops. Reminder to download the IndyCar 15 mobile app and get live streams from in-car cameras like this one and more from Verizon. This camera riding on board Scott Dixon's car.
I've got something funky going on with my visor, the right side of it. I'm not sure if it was the drink tube, kept smashing into it and putting rubber on it. And I keep pulling tear, so run out them pretty quick.
And they talked about the fact that what Scott Goodyear said a moment ago, maybe handing him a cloth to keep in the car if he keeps getting water on his visor from the drink tube, because visibility obviously very important here. And he just said a moment ago that one of the pads in the cockpit there on the head surround behind his helmet may have come out because he can put his helmet back further backwards now than he could when he climbed in the car. And that won't be a problem safety-wise, but his head is going to move around in the car. And now you understand why these guys have got to be incredibly physically fit, but still a little bit concerning the fact that he can move the head back further than he wants to.
So something funky going on there on Scott Dixon's car, and something we'll keep an eye on from Doc. Now, Ryan Hunter-Reay and Justin Wilson had just pitted under the green just before the yellow came out. So they've just been waved around the pace car, but that's why you'll see Hunter-Reay and Wilson way at the back of the field, Jan.
Yes, and things have not been going so well for Ryan Hunter-Reay, and you documented it. They were trying their best to come onto pit road. They made a downforce change at the rear of the car and the front and just missed it by 1 lap. There were a few others like J.R. Hildebrand actually had the tires out when the caution came out, so they were safe. But unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why people run around and save some fuel so you don't get caught by a caution like Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Because of some people like that pitting just before the yellow came out, and the yellow flag bunching up the field, look who's all the way back up into the top 10. Juan Pablo Montoya. Remember, got hit and had to pit to replace the rear wing after the opening lap's crash. Was all the way back in 30th place, lost the time on the next pit stop when he slid through and got over the top of the air hose, an incident that the stewards investigated and issued a warning for. And
He's right back on pace again.
He is right in the mix.
He will be fun as always to watch.
Green, 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 green.
loves it down there.
For the lead, Dixon around Pagano.
And Pagano's about to get attacked by Kanaan coming out of 4. Actually, no. Kanaan's about to get attacked by Power.
Absolutely. What a great run he did.
Looking inside.
Long way back.
It's not going to be easy. That's what he says to Will Power, the #1 machine.
Putting the squeeze on there.
There are so many hot dog wrappers and plastic bags coming out of 2. Coming out of 1.
More trash, I think, than I've seen in years. Here
For
we go
the lead,
again.
Pagano after Dixon in 3.
Now Dixon can learn how his car works behind Pagano's. I think Kanaan's going to want to see what Pagano looks like.
So close these guys get with the front nose to the rear of the car.
And right through for the race lead. Got them both in one straightaway. Tony Kanaan, third to first.
Kanaan is the king of restarts and passes. Trying to send him a message there, Scott?
By 4, but
I don't know, but this place erupted because out of our broadcast window, everybody stood up and cheered for him.
That 1/4 a turn of front wing that they put in his car is like putting 3 grains of salt in your soup. That's such a small adjustment.
But makes a huge difference.
So Kanaan, Dixon, Pagano, Power, Castroneves. There's Power on Pagano, and behind them, Charlie Kimball on Castroneves, the 83 car, the young Californian, rolling toward the front.
And right now, he happens to have the fastest car on the track. He did a lap at 225 miles an hour. He wants to get in the lead group. A new player up front is Power. Let's see how he does.
See if Dixon goes after Kanaan here.
Now, when it's your teammate, you could hear Kanaan coming out of the throttle. If they have a run on you, you let him go by, then you get behind him. And if you do that multiple times, you leapfrog and you find a way to keep distance. And the cars are behind you.
Now, remember in our pre-race show how we had Elio Castroneves and Ryan Hunter-Reay take you back through the events of those last 6 laps in last year's race, how dramatic they were and the tactics. Well, think about now Scott's point when we started the telecast about the draft kicking in later in the straightaway and how all these drivers right now are gaining the education for what they're going to have to do to try and win the race in the last laps. Not just what they're going to have to do to take the lead, but in the case of a move like this, if someone gets by you, what you have to do to keep your momentum up and stay close enough to them to put the counter on.
You are 100% right. They're building up their plan for those last 5 laps. Everything will come down to that. And if you have a teammate around you, it becomes a lot easier.
He's going to try in the high side. Everybody's taking the other car down to the white line, down the backstretch. Now that's perfectly legal if you come out of turn 2 and start to take your car down on the middle of the straight. So you watch Tony Kanaan now starting to get a run past his teammate Scott Dixon. And that was earlier than before. Remember, he mentioned it. Eddie, you mentioned that change of the front wing. It looked like his car's handling much better in 3 and 4, so he had the momentum to get out of the turn and make that pass complete before he got down to turn 1.
And right now, Dixon can use his toe.
So Will Power running 3rd. Black and white car there. Last year's Verizon IndyCar Series champion. Remember, he started 2nd, middle of the row 1, but got quickly shuffled back in the opening couple of laps. This is the highest that he's run since the drop of full green flag racing.
He did not look that strong coming off of 4.
All this racing we're looking at right now, this leapfrogging as you call it, Eddie, they're averaging 222 miles an hour, so probably about 226 to 228 going into the turns. Got to trust the competitor that you're racing against all the time. It's a little easier with teammates, and here we go. Simon now trying to go around the outside of his teammate. Will Power gets that one completed. Now these guys are on the same team, but don't forget that they've had many run-ins over the past couple of years to a point where they stopped talking to each other.
And then Simon became a free agent at the end of the year, got hired by Penske, and now
they have to talk to each other.
The captain forces you to get along, doesn't he?
There is a lot of very strong characters in that team, but the strongest character is the captain's.
So top four, Kanaan, Dixon, Pagenaud, Power, then Charlie Kimball up to fifth, the 30-year-old from California who started the race in 14th and has a long family history here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, having a really solid run, Rick.
Yes, a very solid run. He was happy coming out of Carb Day, felt they needed a few adjustments. A couple things to think about. On that first pit stop, they made some adjustments, and he said it made the car even better. He felt to get a good car, made it even better. The other thing to remember, his team was the runner-up in the pit stop competition. They're already proving that they can do a fast pit stop, and that helped move him up as well.
So Charlie Kimball into the top five. The Stanford fan, whose dad graduated from there, but he deferred acceptance to there because he wanted to pursue racing. He's pursuing a win in the Indy 500 today, but he's got to overcome the 2013 winner Tony Kanaan to get it. Just across 200 miles of the Indianapolis 500-mile race on a spectacular 83-degree afternoon on this Memorial Day here in Indianapolis. And the 2013 winner, Tony Kanaan, is leading what's been a very spirited fight for the #1 spot for these 200 miles so far. Kanaan and Simon Pagenaud there locked up in the top 2 spots for a moment. Reminder, next weekend, the Verizon IndyCar Series heading to the Motor City, and we'll have coverage of the duel in Detroit both Saturday and Sunday from the 14-turn road course on Belle Isle in downtown Detroit, 3:30 Eastern both days here on ABC. Will Power after Scott Dixon, and Power picks up 3rd place.
I think a lot of these passes are happening in turn 1, guys, because there's quite a fair amount of headwind coming down the front stretch. So that car in front is having a difficult time punching a hole in the air. So the advantage is to the car behind. So that might be taken into account close to the end of the race, because a lot of times, as you and I have done many times, Eddie, you get down to the end of the race, you're trying to pass the car in front in turn 3 to surprise him so he doesn't have a shot at you going down the front stretch. But we may see some passes happening here in turn 1. A little bit more than we anticipated, because that windsock, and there it is right there on top of the scoring pylon. Now, as a driver, you're looking at that windsock each time you come down the front stretch to see how you're going to maneuver your car going into the straight or down from the straight into the turn. And as Tony's now going down the back stretch, there's a windsock on the top of the grandstands at the exit of 3. He looks at that at the same time.
Follow up on the second caution that came back at lap 64. Brian Clauson checked and released from the infield medical center. Good to see for Clauson. 28 of the 33 starters on the lead lap. Race for the lead's been good. It's been hard to dip back into the field much, but let's get you a Carfax up to speed and start with Dr. Jerry Punch.
Yeah, let's talk about Tony Kanaan, the man up front. Tony loves to lead. He loves to be aggressive, especially here at Indy. You heard us comment that he had an understeer, meaning the car would not turn on exit. That quarter turn of wing they put in helped it, but now Tony has complained that they have an understeer on entry in the corner, which is creating a little bit of a problem. Rick.
Oh, right behind him is Simon Pagenaud, who at this point in the game is simply playing cat and mouse. They feel the car is so good, they don't want to lead. They want to sit in the back, save some fuel. I can tell you just a few moments ago, when Will Power made the pass on Simon, Simon was not happy with him. In fact, wanted it to be known in the team that that was a problem. A little earlier, Kyle Moyer said you can go ahead and pass for the lead, but apparently he still wants to sit back there and not do that just now. Doc?
Behind them, you look talking about Will Power. Now, it is a very warm day, some 10 degrees warmer than it was here on Friday in the final practice. And Will Power's complaint has been an oversteer, meaning the car has been loose. They made a wing adjustment, a quarter turn out to help the oversteer. But now he says we have an understeer. They may have gone too far. The car will not turn coming up off the corner. Behind him is Scott Dixon, the pole sitter, who has led the bulk of this race thus far. They made no adjustments on Dixon on that previous pit stop, looking at his visor that had water issues and a pad behind his helmet. He has not complained of anything. One believes that he may be biding his time, looking at some fuel numbers. Rick?
Oh, behind him is Charlie Kimball, the Californian. Remember, he is part of the Ganassi team, running similar setups in terms of what those cars ahead of him have. And more importantly, he's just doing a great job today. He's had one victory under his belt in IndyCar and doing fine today. Says the car is just a little bit of understeer in his steer and is hoping there's something they can take care of just with tire pressure on the next stop. Doc?
Elio Castroneves, he said, my experience will allow me to adjust to changing conditions. The track is getting warmer, getting greasier. He has not called for any major adjustments on the car, opting to basically ride. And he said, try to stay just in the top 5 or just outside to be comfortable with the car here where he is just prior to 100 laps. Jan.
Juan Pablo Montoya saw how close he got to the back of Castroneves, but he's been complaining on the radio of understeer. In other words, the car's not turning as well as it should. You may wonder, why did he not get a penalty when he ran over the air hose? They've relaxed the rules this year. If you run over an air hose and the crew pushes it back, you merely get a warning, so he still has a shot, Rick.
And behind him is Graham Rahal. You might remember at the beginning of the broadcast, we talked about the difference between the Chevys and the Hondas, and that is the lead Honda right there, that car of Graham Rahal. He had a vibration a little bit earlier that was a concern, but when they changed the tires, they were able to get rid of that. Beyond that, he's happy and comfortable with the way he's running. Right behind him, Marco Andretti, the next Honda. So far, they say he's just riding around. They're still working on exactly what they want to do to the car, but they've kind of understood at this point in the game, their goal is to catch up to the next Honda. They want to be the lead Honda in this pack. Jan?
Joseph Newgarden, of course, is trying to make amends for a crash that he had. They've been making adjustments on their pit stops. Another one who is very fortunate that the caution came out as his teammate Hildebrand had made the stop as well. So they've been working on the front, adding front wing for Joseph Newgarden. He's getting stronger and stronger as they tune in the car, Alan.
5 different drivers have led, 14 lead changes, 2 cautions, 1 on the opening lap when Sage Karam got put in the middle of a 3-wide situation into turn 1 and crashed. Sato and Hunter Ray, the other 2 drivers around him. And then at lap 64, Brian Clauson crashed in turn number 4. Those are the only 2 yellows we've had so far in the race. Closing in on halfway in the 99th Indianapolis 500-mile race. The pit crews will get busy again very soon at the Brickyard. Almost to halfway in the Indianapolis 500 for 2015. Our telecast today presented by Firestone. Tony Kanaan, the 2013 winner, out in front while the next wave of pit stops gets underway. Last year's winner, Ryan Hunter-Reay, is in.
Yes, and unfortunately for Ryan Hunter-Reay, he's not getting the kind of fuel economy that he wants because they've had to add a lot of downforce, so he hits pit road early. Not a problem unless you get caught by a yellow like he did earlier. Just over 9.2 seconds for Hunter-Reay. Again, he's going to need to get this car faster and find a way to not hit so early.
Sebastian Bourdais also on and off the pit road under that last lap of green.
And to follow up on something that Jan just mentioned, that Ryan Hunter-Reay needs a little bit more downforce on the car, so that means a little bit more wing angle to put pressure on the wings to give it some more grip, but you certainly use more fuel.
Jan?
Joseph Newgarden taking the opportunity to make a stop. We watch Tony Kanaan at the same time. So we'll wait for Kanaan to get to Dr. Jerry Punch.
Yeah, Tony Kanaan complained of an understeer, and again, as an understeer more on exit than interest, they're going to make another adjustment on the wing, and also going to make an air pressure change on Tony Kanaan because he said the car is starting to move around quite a bit on the racetrack.
You see that you can change tires more quickly than you can refuel the car. So the fueling is key, unless you get into one of those late race situations where you don't need the full fuel load. Montoya to Jan.
And this time he does stop it right on the mark, so they will be able to make quick service for him. Watch the front wing. They're planning on adding some, and they wait till the last moment. It's only a half turn. Juan Pablo Montoya, watch out. There's Graham Rahal, but he slots in right behind.
Meanwhile, you've got Marco Andretti coming in. Once again, as we said earlier, they haven't had a specific problem with the car. They just haven't had it to where they want it to be. Marco Andretti said, when you get right down to it, this is 2 different races. The first half and the second half. We're just about to enter the second half. That's where they need to get this together and get the speed that they need to win this race.
Simon Pagenaud, Will Powers, Scott Dixon, Charlie Kimball, all coming in. Castroneves takes the lead. Here's Rick.
And here's the important thing to think about. Simon Pagenaud just went 2 laps further than Tony Kanaan did. So when they put the Sunoco fuel in, they're getting a little better mileage because what he's been doing is follow around. They're putting a little more downforce in the front because that's what he wanted. They said watch the tire pressures, a little bit of time taken getting out of pit road because of the Charlie Kimball tire changer had to get out of the way, Doc.
You saw the front wing adjustment for Scott Dixon. First time of day, they got it completely full of Sunoco fuel. They were waiting on fuel and went ahead and made the front wing adjustments to try to prevent an understeer. Here comes Elio Castroneves in, and for the first time of day, he has asked for a front wing adjustment. Elio having to be very careful and very deliberate as cars are pulling out in front of him, and he will turn left down into his pit. Here comes Elio, 60 miles an hour, trying to win his 4th Indianapolis 500. Now watch the tires go on and watch the front tire changer come around for the front wing adjustment. See the wings right there? They made the adjustment. Clock ticking away on Elio, full of fuel, 9+ seconds, good pit stop.
And there's your race for the lead off the stops as we go past halfway. Pagenaud, Kanaan, Power.
Penske, Ganassi, Penske, Ganassi.
Power and Montoya. Their race for 3rd place. And Montoya will pick it up. Let's check back down on pit road and Jan.
During that round of pit stops, you may have noticed a lot of people were taking front wing, and you heard Eddie talk about the temperature. The race started today at 101 degrees of a track temperature. Now it's 116. So Eddie, when you're talking about a grain of salt in your soup, they're going to want some more salt to keep this car balanced because it's getting hotter and the track conditions are changing a lot.
And it's all coming out to a very exciting finish.
So Simon Pagenaud, the 31-year-old from what he describes as a small town in the countryside of France, who moved to the United States, speaking no English, to pursue a career in racing. He's a sports car racing champion in the American Le Mans Series. He is a winner on the IndyCar Series. Had a couple of wins last season, moved to the Penske team this year, moved from Indianapolis down to Cornelius, North Carolina, north of Charlotte, to be near the Penske operation. And he said that when he came here to Indianapolis this year, the first thing he had the team do was put Elio Castroneves' setup in to begin practice. And he went out and he said, I learned for the very first time what having a car with good balance throughout an entire run felt like, and it gave me so much confidence.
And he was glad to tell us that when he told us that story. And you could tell he was just so happy that he had a car like that for this race. And having said that, for the first 103 laps of this race, he has been the fastest of the Penske drivers. And he's doing such a good job at learning to what's around him. He doesn't run up to somebody and pass him, Scott. He sits behind him. He tries to get as close as he can to start replaying what the final laps are going to be, because you can bet that they will be close and there'll be at least 5 cars all fighting for that same position. And he knows what his car does when he's behind both of the Ganassi cars.
That's why his teammates call him the professor.
And I don't know about you, Scott, but every time I have a conversation with Simon, I come away feeling like I've learned something about the sport and racecraft, driving one of these Indy cars.
Absolutely, and you know, talk about Kyle Moyer, who's the strategist. Now, Kyle Moyer was with Team Andretti Autosport for many, many years, about 2 decades, and made the switch over when he got a call from Team Penske. He said, I had to think about it for a few days and made the decision. It's a lifestyle change, moving from Indianapolis over to North Carolina. But I asked him about Simon Pagenaud, and he said the guy is so good. And that's quite a compliment, because Kyle's had an opportunity to work with some very talented drivers in his career.
Overtaking Justin Wilson there to put Wilson 1 lap down in 27th place. Roger Penske, 15 times a winner of the Indianapolis 500, on a little bit of a dry spell where winning this race is concerned. You see the 2nd longest dry spell in the captain's career. And when you walk into the Penske Racing shops down in Mooresville, North Carolina, right inside the entrance, there's a row of trophies. The baby Borg they give, the copy of the Borg Warner Trophy for winning this race. Roger's got 15 of them. The race for the lead in the Indianapolis 500-mile race. 22, Simon Pagenaud, the white and red car. The blue car, Tony Kanaan running second, the 10, and then Juan Pablo Montoya coming in third. Our Mother's Race Rundown, recapping the event so far. Turn 1, lap 1, a crash.
Not the time you want to try and pass on the outside. The 14 ABC car up to Kuma Sato, trying to go around on the high side. You can see him trying to get up in the grade. Not the thing to do. Ryan Briscoe gets clipped by Charlie Kimball. And very important when we see these types of things to remember what happened, because Sage Karam, who had a chance to win the race, is out of it very early.
Now later, under the caution to clean that up, there was contact between Montoya and Simona Di Silvestro.
And that was contact under a yellow. That's one of the basic covenants that you have, is you're really careful you don't hit anybody. So he really got knocked a long way back. Then he came in and he ran over his pit hose. And he got lucky because the yellow fell his way.
He has made a nice recovery from 30th after the opening crash to third. Penske and Ganassi, the two heavyweight teams in the series, staging a toe-to-toe slugfest for the top spot.
Exactly what we thought we would be seeing, and they're passing each other at any opportunity, trying to take advantage of traffic to get back in front.
Yellow, yellow, yellow over here.
Two cars up on the wall.
That is Ed Carpenter. Was the other one Serbia?
Ed, who you recall has already had...
Yes, Oriol Serbia.
And Ed's already had one crash so far this month in Oriol Serbia.
I'm okay, I'm okay.
You can hear the information relating back, I'm okay, I'm okay. Ed, the visor is up. Legs are probably a little sore. You can see he's got the steering wheel off.
He's catching his breath.
Pictures say a lot. Can you put into words what it feels like to crash here in these moments of aftermath when you're uninjured even?
May have pushed
the
there
minute
a
you
little
start
bit.
to spin or you have an accident, you just lose control of time, and you never actually know if you're okay until you've been sitting there a while, because these crashes are so violent. I had an accident once in turn 1. It took me a good 15 seconds to get control of my surroundings. And in this case, it's good to see Ed get out of the car, but it's very, very irritating and very frightening when it happens at Indy.
And there is Serbia out of his car. This down at turn 1, where the crash happened on the opening laps. And now the third yellow of the race for a two-car incident in that part of the racetrack.
And you can see these guys are now going up towards turn 1 at about 225 to 28 miles an hour. The green car popping out from underneath very late, and we talked about confrontational passes. The 20 of Ed Carpenter gets underneath the 32 of Serbia and just leaves it a little bit too late. Now let's ride along and see it. Surprises Serbia. He comes down, clips the nose of him. Remember, we had something like that last year with James Hinchcliffe and Carpenter going into 1. So as the race goes on, you try and do things with your race car that maybe you shouldn't do. Just starting to get past halfway.
And in this case, you know that Serbia's spotter was telling him, Ed is right behind you, Ed is right behind you. So probably when he told him he was coming out, he had maybe half a second before he had to turn in. And you can't just take the high road, because we've seen what happens when you hit that high line. There's no grip there, so you always want to fight your way down to where the rubber is, and that's what happened. We've been saying that the whole day, that these toes are not like they were last year. They happen very late in the straightaway, and you have to make those dive bombs in the inside, and that's an example of what happens. Ed is looking at his wrist.
Second hard crash in a week for Carpenter. Remember last Sunday morning on qualifying day, he was the one that had the hard crash off of turn number 2. In the morning warm-up just after 8 o'clock in the morning, that saw his car slam the turn 2 wall and get upside down. This was last Sunday.
Single car accident. The handling of the car was just off a little bit. The back end goes around into the wall.
And he almost ran out of the safer barrier. If he would have got another 40 feet, he would have hit the wall, not the safer barrier. But the worst thing of this is that the back of the car picked up.
And now 7 days later, this incident heading down into turn 1.
That's the sort of pass you would expect a little bit later in the race than the lap 114.
And the motion of that steering wheel, if you were watching the steering wheel when the front end of that car slammed the wall, is just the exact reason why the drivers make sure they get their hands off the wheel and not be holding it when the car hits. These open wheel cars, when they hit the wall, that steering wheel is going to move, and it's going to move violently.
But Alan, that goes against every instinct that you have. You're holding on for dear life, and you've got to be calm enough to say let go. And the minute you let go, you're obviously out of control.
Yeah. So third yellow of the race, just shy of the 300-mile mark. Most of the people were in about 15 to 17 laps ago, but an opportunity to take fuel again here. And we'll see what happens on the pit lane. Remember, you won't need the full load of fuel, so now, like we were talking about before, that makes things a little bit different and a little more stressful on the tire changers if you decide to go that route.
If you want to have a run at this for the win, I think you have to be in that first 5 cars, Scott.
Pit road's open, Jan.
And I agree exactly what you're saying. This is like a pit stop competition because they will not need all the fuel. It'll come down to the tire changers. Montoya will be the first to stop. As far as the top 3 leaders, they're expecting to give him one more half turn of front wing. He's here. Let's get to Rick.
And with Simon Pagenaud coming in out of the lead of the race after that last pit stop, one of the things that they told him was when they took the tires off, they all looked good, meaning he's working the tires just right. No major adjustments are necessary. Doc?
Tony Kanaan said the air pressure change did not help. He played with the wake decker, but the car still twitchy on exit. No major adjustments, slight air pressure. Kanaan waiting on fuel on his away.
He showed you that pit road is long, but it's not terribly wide. Tony Kanaan going to be the one who loses the most track position on this set of pit stops. Oh, an incident on the pit lane. Those are 2 of the 3 Dale Coyne Racing entries in the event, 18 and 19. Tristan Vautier in the 18.
There's 2 mechanics that are down.
And the 19 is James Davison. And you see the safety team there.
IndyCar about 4 or 5 years ago implemented a mandatory helmet rule for the crew going over the wall, which has been just a wonderful thing here.
So the 19 car Davison is leaving his pit stall, and all three of the Dale Coyne Racing cars involved as Davison collides with Pippa Mann and forces Davison's car into the pits of Vautier.
Now, the crew members for Davidson should not have released him out into the pit lane. The center lane that you see there is a transfer lane. The lane closest to us is what they call the high-speed lane. And Pippa Mann was already transferring in that middle lane, so they should have held the 19 car back, so not allowing him to get in there. That's just a terrible thing.
So obviously we'll monitor the situation, bring you any updates available as soon as they're available. We're back to the Brickyard after this from your ABC station. Just coming up to 300 miles of the Indianapolis 500-mile race, under caution for a crash on the track between Ed Carpenter and Oriol Servia. Now an incident on the pit lane that continues to be attended to, and will keep the race under yellow for another few more minutes. We'll come back to Indianapolis and continue to monitor the situation. At 300 miles, the Indianapolis 500 is under caution with Simon Pagenaud leading in that 22 car. We check down on pit lane with Jan Beekes.
Yes, and of course, one of the things that drivers never want to have, and that is making contact with crew members. James Davison, what happened when they released you from the pits?
Yeah, well, the AE Replay XT Cruise car was getting better all day, and yeah, unfortunately, I got sent out there at the same time that Pippa was coming, and we made contact, and you know, it sent me into then our second team car, and all 3 Dale Coyne cars made contact right there and took both me and Tristan out. So just a very unfortunate situation. I was working my way towards the top 10, but I'll have a go again next year.
I saw you go to the ambulance where they were attending to the crew members. Any word on their condition?
No, not at this point. Obviously, that's priority. Really hoping he's okay. I think we just took his feet away from him rather than ran him over, which is obviously good in the initial thoughts, and hopefully he'll make a full recovery and be back at Detroit.
Thank you, James. And I will tell you that what happened there, one went back on a gurney, certainly conscious. The other in the ambulance did look a bit more serious.
All right, Jan, thanks. And again, we'll continue to follow up on that situation and bring you all available information as soon as possible.
It's a great act of faith for the mechanics to have their backs turned to the cars as they go down pits, it's one of the bravest things that you can do in the 500 because there's a lot of traffic behind you and you can only focus on what you're doing.
And again, the reminder you made earlier, these cars are going at 60 miles an hour on the pit lane. They're still moving along pretty well. So 1 to go, and we'll go back full speed racing in another lap. A reminder that tomorrow night is Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals, and the Golden State Warriors will try and eliminate the Houston Rockets and see if they can move on to the championship round. Steph Curry with 40 points last night in Game 3. It's Golden State at Houston in an elimination game. Coverage starts at 8 p.m. Eastern with Kia NBA Countdown on ESPN and Watch ESPN. So a couple of other stories while we regroup for the restart. Remember in our race recap a minute ago, we showed you Ryan Briscoe getting turned around. Briscoe in the race, subbing for James Hinchcliffe, who was injured in that terrible crash on Monday. And Briscoe has worked his way up 17 positions now, and Ryan runs in 14th place in that 5 car. And obviously all of us send our best wishes and cheers and happy thoughts to James, and wish him the speediest of recoveries to get back to see us at the racetrack.
And he will be back here.
And Ryan Briscoe doing a phenomenal job as a super sub. Came in here, got allowed an hour of practice by IndyCar on Thursday just to get used to the car. He hadn't driven here all month. And then the carb day practice on Friday. And he's worked his way up through half of the field in this one. Pagenaud leads the field to the restart.
Clear low.
Will Power for the race lead on Pagenaud. Pagenaud back on his teammate to reclaim the top spot.
Each one trying to prove to the other that they can be dominant.
But nobody's been dominant for that many laps, have they? Nobody's actually broken away from the group without somebody else's help. 15 wide.
Scott Dixon all the way down against the inside wall to get second place.
I think when the dust comes up, that's meant for street sweepers to actually be doing that, not race cars at 225 miles an hour.
Now we'll see what Dixon has for Pagenaud. They've all made small adjustments to their car. He is going to pass him, turning into 3.
See how close he had to do it to make it complete.
Now, getting back to that dominant thing you were talking about, that's the alpha dog right now.
And bring Juan Pablo Montoya back into the mix, and here comes Kanan into turn 1.
Everybody is starting to feel that they're getting closer to that 200th lap.
You mentioned a moment ago, Eddie, everybody's done those final adjustments. This is accumulation of all those small things they've done. Each and every pit stop, these cars will continue to get better, and we're getting down close to the grass with Marco Andretti.
2 teammates, and Munoz. The Honda engines are not quite as fast as the Chevys are today. They haven't really found their way into that leading group yet.
Well, the Honda engines or slash the aero package, which the Honda cars have on it right now, probably consuming a little bit more fuel. As we see Elio Castroneves go underneath Charlie Kimball. He's starting to march towards the front, but we are certainly seeing most of the Chevy cars up front. It's been interesting, though, with the Honda Power cars with Ray Hall and Andretti and Carlos Munoz in the top 10 most of the day. Probably don't have the speed to win, but here we go again. 22, Simon Pagenaud.
Back to the lead.
This is the fun part, isn't it, Eddie? When you're out there and you be able to race like that.
Getting close to the end. Somebody who's going to have to pick up the pace a little bit is Castroneves. He needs to get in that lead group.
While we watch this, quick update. Both Ed Carpenter and Oriel Sylvia checked and released from the Infield Medical Center. Good news there. What was it, you? And I don't, honestly, I'll apologize in advance for this. I don't remember if you said it on the air or during a commercial break, but you said this restart was going to be wild.
And it
was. And if we get a caution late in this race, hang on. Here's Dixon.
I like the way the cars are drafting this year. I prefer it to being bunched up. Montoya getting ready to line up Pagenaud. Oh, this is late. This is late.
You saw him click a gear, then back down a gear to get that engine back in the power band when he's going through the turns.
Montoya was last. Remember that at the accident we had at the beginning, all that confusion? Look where he's at now. He's second.
He dropped all the way back to 30th, and he's worked his way up to contend for the win in this one, Rick.
It's been interesting. On that last yellow flag, Simon Pagenaud was asking, what is the setup on all of the other cars? What kind of downforce are they running? He wanted to know what Will was running, what Elio was running. The one thing that he was told that really got his attention was that Montoya is running the same kind of downforce that Pagenaud is. That's why those two guys of the Penske cars are leading right now in terms of their group.
The top 7 cars in this race all belong to one of 2 teams, Team Penske or Chip Ganassi Racing. Slugging it out for the trophy at Indianapolis. The Indianapolis 500, our telecast presented by Firestone. You've been watching this great fight for the lead between Scott Dixon and Simon Pagenaud, with Juan Pablo Montoya closing in. Watch this last restart from a high angle. Look at the frantic action behind the leaders, and watch Tony Kanaan jockeying back and forth and how close this got in turn 1. Kanaan in the blue car, squeezing right through the middle. That's Castroneves and Kimball in 1 and 2. Then later on down the racetrack, watch again.
He is so lucky his front wing didn't break.
They're both lucky they didn't crash.
So far, the only driver of this group that has anything for Dixon is Pagenaud.
I don't know, Juan Pablo Montoya might be there. Ran as low as 30th in the race after the damage that forced him to replace the rear wing. He's our Firestone durable driver of the race for the incredible rally that he's had from the back of the field up to contend for the victory. More on Montoya from Jan Beekes.
Up on aero.
Listening to him talk on the radio about up on aero on his last pit stop. Remember, they told him on the radio they would give him a half turn of front wing. During the actual pit stop, they gave him 1.5 turns. So that makes the car much more positive on turn-in. That should help him in traffic. But as you heard on the radio, they still are trying to fine-tune this. But what a great day so far for Montoya.
Out of the throttle a lot there.
Remember, you just came through turn 3. You have a tailwind in 3, so you're getting pushed a little bit going into the turn. Here's the front stretch where you have a headwind.
And we'll see if he keeps this throttle consistent the whole way around 1 and 2. No, this car's not quite right. He's going down all the way to 34%. But what's interesting, he didn't lose very much when he did that. Every corner he takes his foot off the throttle, but even by doing that, he's gaining distance.
That's Montoya in 3rd place. The same view now from the race leader, Scott Dixon.
Dixon, you know, this track is symmetrical. It's a perfect rectangle, but Dixon is so much better in turns 3 and 4 than he is in 1 and 2. And the reason being, he has complained that the wind gusts are picking up in turn 2. They made an air pressure change on the previous stop to try to help the stability of the car and the balance, but it's still gusting a little bit, and that is bothering our leader Dixon, especially in turns 1 and 2.
So for this lap, he didn't take his foot off the throttle. He didn't pull away from anybody, but when Montoya was behind him, he was actually gaining in the corners by going all the way down to 34%. That just shows you how much the draft is going to count in these last laps.
So Scott Dixon has just passed 1930 500 winner Billy Arnold for 12th place on the all-time lap leaders list. Next up, look at that, Rick Mears, Michael Andretti, Bobby Unser. The New Zealand native is tremendous here at the Speedway.
That is a list of drivers and the history around here that they have at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We had dinner with Rick Mears the other night. What a wealth of knowledge he is.
Scott Dixon said the other day that when he grew up in New Zealand, you didn't get the telecasts of Indianapolis like you do today. He said so when he moved here to Indianapolis in 1999, he downplayed the importance of this race because he wasn't in it. But when he first started racing in it in 2002, he said the enormity of it hit him hard. And now I will bet you, despite the time difference, there are thousands of people down in New Zealand watching, cheering for their native son to get his hands on another Ford Warner trophy today. So as you saw in our side-by-side coverage, terrific fight for the lead between Scott Dixon and Simon Pagenaud continues in the Indianapolis 500. Our telecast today presented by Firestone. We're across 350 miles. And we've had 22 lead changes. 6 different drivers have led. Dixon has spent the most time out in front of this event after starting on pole position. 24 starters on the lead lap, dropping back a little bit into the field. The Chevys are dominating so far today. The top running Honda is Carlos Munoz with Graham Rahal right behind him. They are running in 8th and 9th positions. Here comes Rahal. Talked about his team co-owner David Letterman being here at the racetrack today. And as we look at the Honda telemetry on board the Rahal Letterman Lanigan car, I was talking to Graham about Mr. Letterman the other day, and he said, you know, David knows everything that's going on. He says, I get emails from him about, he said, even if he's not at the track, he sees all the races, he knows what's going on in the race team, and as a co-owner, he is involved in all of the decisions where things are concerned on this team and this car. Next wave of pit stops begins, Jan.
We talk about a wave of decisions. Ryan Hunter-Reay has actually called on the radio and said the car just isn't doing it. You guys have to do something. He's desperate to try to find some kind of change that'll give him speed. But obviously, as a defending champion, things are looking really rough for Ryan Hunter-Reay today.
Why did Dixon take that line?
Is that a signal sometimes that you're going to actually pit this next time around? So it's usually a little further down than sometimes we do, but he's taking a low line. If he takes a low line out of 4, you'll see him come in. There we go.
Right. So the race leader in with what'll be 51 laps to go.
So there'll be one more pit stop after this one.
Here he is, Doc.
As you mentioned, one more pit stop is all Scott Dixon needs. Now, they made a downforce change 2 stops ago. Last stop, they made an air pressure change to help it with the wind gust off of turn 2. Mike Hall said Scott Dixon wants nothing changed with the tires and fill it up with Sunoco fuel. We'll watch. They got to be careful not to make a mistake. In 2011, they didn't get it full of fuel, and it cost him a win. That's why they're being very deliberate. Waiting. He is down and away, 9.1 seconds.
And now we're going to see how many laps more Simon Pagenaud does.
Because he spent all that time riding behind Dixon instead of just going up and swapping the lead back and forth with him. Here's Tony Kanaan in, Doc.
And Tony Kanaan had complained that the car needed more front wing. He had an understeer, a significant understeer in turn 3. So as he comes down pit road 60 miles an hour, and again, Kanaan has a great race car, but with the wind changes, he said it will not turn in turn 3. Watching for the front wing adjustment. The tires will go on. Watch the front tire changes. There's the wing changer talking about. Trying to end the downforce, getting it full of fuel. Oh, almost stalled it. Almost 10 seconds. Cost him an extra second.
And now Pagenaud dives in off the pit lane with Montoya and Power right behind him. Jan?
Montoya will be the first to stop. He's been calling for downforce changes, so we'll watch to see how much they change this time. Remember, the fuel does take longer, like we saw for Scott Dixon. That was one turn, Rick.
Simon Pagenaud brings the car, and there was a discussion about an air pressure adjustment on this car. He says when he's alone, the car is great. He's a little concerned about traffic. They had a very fast pit stop last time. They're filling them all the way up with fuel. And earlier he asked, should I lead? And he gets out just barely ahead of Montoya. They almost collide on pit road.
Oh, my goodness.
And Power, a third of the Penske cars in the pit lane confrontation.
Power beat him out.
Look at him trying to get up to speed on the cold tires on the warm-up lane.
Think we're getting serious now, boys? I think so. Oh, 4 wheels over for Montoya. That might be looked at by race control, you guys.
And on the blend off the pit stops, the 3 Penske cars out ahead of him, quickly closing and charging it at full speed. Scott Dixon
around the outside, and he might have a run at this one also.
Remember, Scott Dixon's tires are warm because he was in previously. The guys that just left, tires are...
Oh, trouble! Kanaan! That was Tony Kanaan into the wall. Hard crash for the former winner.
Oh, goodness. And for a guy that generally makes no mistakes, I wonder if something broke in the car.
This race sure has heated up.
Look how fast the safety crew is there, the Hamaltra safety crew.
He's fine.
Kanaan quickly out of the car, but a race where he certainly looked like might be a contender to win at the end of the day has come to a grinding halt for the popular 40-year-old. And a very sudden, really sudden looking swapping ends of that car for Kanaan.
Well, we see that in the replay, but it looked like it happened going in.
Now the second car here in the frame is Tony Kanaan. And as we roll this, you'll see he's down by the white line. Everything looks to be okay. And guys, I gotta tell you, that car just looks like it didn't have enough downforce, maybe a little bit loose on the back end. Now let's ride along here and look backwards. Nothing wrong there, nothing looks off. Yeah, just that little bit of a wiggle. Eddie, you know what that's like. The car was just a little bit light in mid-turn when it was at maximum G-force. And then the thing started to wiggle. It came away. He did a little correction. You saw the car come back, and then it just releases as it generally does. And this is the second impact. You can see all the damage to the car.
It looked very similar to what Castroneves had. He was getting ready for qualifying. Doc?
We're with Chip Ganassi, and Chip, you've just watched the same replay we've watched. I know he hasn't said anything on the radio. What do you think happened?
You know, Jerry, we just made a downforce change there, and obviously he drove down into 3, and I don't know, it looks like something caught him off guard there, and he had a little wiggle and couldn't catch it.
Chip Ganassi talking about the front wing change that TK had asked for, and it may have bitten him there with this yellow flag.
So past the 3/4 mark of the race, and one of the top contenders and lap leaders on the day is eliminated in a crash. Tony Kanaan into the wall. Cleanup continues over in turn number 2 from Tony Kanaan's crash. We just heard from Chip Ganassi about the pit stop adjustment. We hear now the communication that happened just before the pit stop on the 10 teams radio.
The last change was a half a turn. Do you want a half or a quarter? Quarter. Would you want a bit more downforce with that? Yes.
So that was the communication. But unfortunately, as Chip Ganassi said, something caught Tony by surprise.
I think when they said, do you want a bit more downforce, they were referring to the rear wing. They had just put some front wing in, and they put more, and then he asked, do you want some rear wing also?
So Tony Kanaan, one of the contenders, has led 30 laps in this one, but he's on the hook now. And we're back to Indianapolis after this from your ABC station. They've hauled Tony Kanaan's car away from the scene of the accident. We hear from TK now, Jan.
And thankfully, he's in better shape than that race car. We heard the radio communication where we were discussing quarter turn, half turn. Did they miss it?
I mean,
we missed it. Obviously, it got really loose, and we unfortunately lost it. But I mean, I can't take my guys enough. You know, we were strong all day, and it was the last stop, so we were going to go for it, and I was going for it. So I'd rather get out of the race like this, trying, than actually just sit back there. So for me, it's win or nothing here. It doesn't matter second or third. So I feel bad for the sponsors, NTT, Bryant, all the guys are here watching us. But you know, one thing that on a positive note, I think we proved for some critics that it's not that we flip a car every time we crash. So here we go, guys. We didn't flip this time.
As far as those adjustments you were making, it's because the competition really heated up. You guys were so competitive. Now that you're out, who do you think has the strongest car?
I think Scott and Pagano, I think, are the ones that are going to be fighting. So my money's on Scott for sure.
All right, thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
So Tony Kanaan, his teammate Charlie Kimball now has the lead. Kimball was the last of the leaders to pit. There he is exiting pit road, and there are Pagano and Dixon and the others. Now Kimball was on pit road when the caution came out, so those other drivers had to back off the throttle, and he went from 7th to 1st by the benefit of being the last one to pit.
I think he will surprise a few people. He has been strong, Alan, through the last 30, 40 laps. But that just happens. Sometimes you're in the right place and the yellow comes out, and at this point he was. But he's going to have a chance to show how strong he is.
That little piece of tape or trash or something flapping from the right front wing on that 83 car. So here we come to the restart. Kimball, Pagano, Dixon, Montoya, Power, Castroneves, Marco Andretti up to 7th.
Kimball sounded like he was almost 1 gear too low when he was getting through the turn. We'll see how he fares coming into 1.
Taking a high line.
A knot of cars.
That Power Andretti was a fight between Chevy and Honda. And the Chevy looked stronger.
So still 100 miles to go when you think back to a lap ago and the give and take on the part of Pagano when he couldn't clear Kimball into 1. Here's Castroneves trying to make up some lost ground in the shuffle of stops.
But it didn't work.
Kimball had held his line and had every right to do that. And Pagano is too far back to make a run this lap. And here comes Dixon on the outside of Pagano. And he's going to pass.
Clear by half right here.
Oh, I'm sure he was on the brakes just a tad there. Down 1 gear, you saw him doing the paddle shifting on the steering wheel.
This is definitely go time.
Montoya clears Pagano. Montoya to 3rd and Pagano back to 4th. And for the race lead, Scott Dixon to the outside of Charlie Kimball.
Montoya's going to have to pass Kimball quickly.
Look at Kimball's car just moving around a little bit there. Ooh.
Wiggling all over the place.
And then he's wiggling in his chair because you know the result if that all goes bad. Here he goes.
It's Montoya's corner.
Outside, 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 clear.
Kimball has to get away from the gray.
You knew that Montoya was not going to take his foot off the gas.
No, this is where Montoya.
That's just him.
This is his part of the race where he is so good. Kimball is not backing off.
Charlie Kimball came into to his play just a couple of years ago, winning that race at Mid-Ohio, holding off all the other guys. He just did a tremendous job, and his value went up, his stock went up in the paddock for sure that day.
Here comes Power.
Oh, that's so tough to do, and you have to believe your car will do it. Keep your foot on the gas, that's so tough.
And look who's creeping into the frame. The guy who's been struggling with the handling of his car for the last 2 weeks, Marco Andretti in that yellow machine. The guy who just has the knack for Indianapolis creeps into the picture as Montoya tries Dixon for the race lead.
And if anybody in the Honda can do it, it's got to be Marco.
Marco Andretti with 5 top 4 finishes in 9 tries in this race, and he's got Graham Rahal right with him as they try and close in on this fight in front of them.
If they work together, they can get there.
Sons of their dads that raced here. Look at this battle going on between Pagenaud and Charlie Kimball. That was a result of the same thing in one, guys. He tried the same move, and Kimball closed the door on him, and this time he wasn't able to.
That's at 228 miles an hour.
Here's Montoya.
Just playing through. Here we go.
I hate to keep restating the obvious. He was the 30th at the start of the race. And now he's leading.
When I talked to him the other day at length, he said, all I've done here this month is try to make my car more comfortable. If I go out there and does something I don't like it, I come back in, we go back to the garage, I work with the engineers. I need a car that is comfortable each and every lap because I don't want to have to extend myself or the car.
Juan Pablo Montoya, the 2000 winner of this race. From back to front in the 99th Indianapolis 500. You won't miss a thing. We go side by side. Caution out for debris off of turn number 2 after an exciting, wild series of lead changes. I'll show you the reason for the caution.
14 Takuma Sato, you'll see here as we start to go along. He gets clipped just from the behind by a possibility, and then debris comes off the back of the car. That's the reason that we're under caution right now.
Of course, remember Sato involved in the turn 1 lap 1 crash that wound up putting him 3 laps down. He's gotten himself back to just 1 lap down, but Sato in 24th place at the moment. Pit road is going to be a very busy place. 30 laps to go in this one when everybody comes in for service here. And they're on their way off of turn number 4, Jan.
This may change the complexion of the race because this falls at a time when now there's 31, 32 laps to go, and you can make it. This will be their final stop, but they're going to have some fuel. Montoya is not expecting any changes, but they're going to have to get every little bit of fuel so they can make it to the end. They'll change the complexion. Doc?
Biggest adjustment of the day for Will Power. Added front wing, took rear wing out. Added front wing, took rear wing out, see if he can get some speed there. Here is Scott Dixon. Mike Hall said we will make no changes, but we have got to get it full of fuel. Not getting it full of fuel cost us the race in 2011. He is down, but Will Power will beat him off pit road.
So that'll be your order for the restart, which will come out inside the final 30 laps here at Indianapolis. Deep breath, everyone.
I'm excited. This is going to be great.
So Power put front wing in and took rear wing out. That is the biggest bet anybody has done in this race.
So he wants the car to turn with that front wing. It will be turned more positive for him. They're taking the rear wing out, gives him more of a slipstream down the straightaway so he can draft. But boy, you have to be able to drive that thing, and what we call that standing up on the wheel. But you know what? You're coming down to win the Indianapolis 500, a chance to drink the milk. You got to try it.
So the pit crews going head-to-head, basically. Will Powers and Scott Dixon's, the 2 cars pitted nose to tail on the pit lane.
That could be the difference between winning and losing the Indy 500 this year.
The other question I had in mind was, did they get the one full of fuel?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I'm thinking.
So we're inside 30 laps to go at the Indianapolis 500. It's going to be a wild finish. Glad you're with us. Alan Bestwick, Eddie Cheever, and Scott Goodyear topside. Dr. Jerry Punch, Jan Beekes, and Rick DeBrule on pit road. And our entire 150-person plus Indianapolis 500 broadcast team ready to bring you whatever's going to happen in these last 29 laps of this race. What if your imaginary friend wasn't imaginary? What about it, Eddie? Watch the series premiere of The Whispers next Monday, June 1st at 10, 9 Central on ABC.
There's no friends out there right now. No. It's every man for himself.
So, quick recap of the day. Been a really interesting fight up front between the two super teams, Penske Racing and Ganassi Racing. Their drivers have dominated the top 5-6 spots of the event all race long. Had a turn 1, lap 1 crash that took out one of the Ganassi cars, Sage Karam, involved in an accident there that eliminated him from the race when he looked to have a very sporty car. He got put in the middle of a sandwich, and contact from Takuma Sato took Karam out of the race. Had an incident on pit road involving the Dale Coyne Racing cars where 2 crewmen were taken to the infield medical center. We've received no update, names, information, or whatnot on that, but we continue to pursue that for you. We've had 30 lead changes, about 9 different drivers, and we're setting up now for what's going to be a 27-lap race to the finish, caution flag barring, with new drivers at the front by not pitting under this yellow flag. Carlos Munoz in the 26 and Justin Wilson in the 25 for Andretti Autosport.
Scott, they will get gobbled up. They're not in the fastest cars. The cars that are behind them, Power, Montoya, Dixon, Pagano, Castroneves, Kimball, will go through them really quickly.
Very quickly, but the guys you're just talking, the guys that are going for this race win, starting with Power all the way down, need to be cautious getting past these guys. Not only do they not have the fastest cars, as you're mentioning, Eddie, but they also have to come in one more time for fuel. So they know that already. What I'm interested to look at right now, you've got Penske, and then Chip Ganassi, Penske and Penske. Scott Dixon lost his teammate, Tony Kanaan, so he's lost his partner out there, so he's on his own with 4 other guys clamoring around him that can go out there and start to do some teamwork, team tactics to try to make this.
You saying he's going to get mugged by all the Penske drivers?
I think there could be some alley work going on, yes.
So here we go. By the way, the Penske team says Will Power did get filled full of fuel.
And that's what I would say also.
Dr. Jerry Punch reporting that up from the pit lane. Here we go. 27 laps to go. How wild is this one going to get down to turn 1?
Green, 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 green.
Wilson takes the lead.
He looks in his mirror and he knows what's about ready to happen.
Will Power through Munoz, brings Montoya with him. They're second and third now behind Justin Wilson.
Now right now they're teammates. When it gets down to 5 laps, they'll be adversaries. And Dixon gets by Munoz.
Power to the outside for the race lead into 1.
There, as Power came across his bow, he ended up taking that air away from Wilson's car.
And Wilson said, just go.
Go, yes, absolutely. Look at down to the grass.
Scott Dixon trying to keep pace. Comes through to third. Here's Pagano now, next to try and work on Wilson. Pagano, the second most laps led in this race, but finds himself back in 5th at the moment.
That's confidence right there as soon as Wilson starts to move up. Simon Pagano, I'm thinking he's got a problem with his front wing, guys. I think I saw the right front of his wing, absolutely.
Right there.
Yes,
look
there was
out,
something
everybody's
going on.
scrambling around Pagano's car.
I'm not so sure he didn't clip the back of Wilson's car. Remember we talked about how close you had to get?
Got a broken front wing.
Look at this as everybody scrambled up as Pagano slips back into the field.
Coming out of 4.
Trouble! Hard crash.
First car in line, Coletti.
Saavedra, Coletti. Saavedra.
So he's moving his hands inside the cockpit, about ready to raise his visor.
And Jack Hawksworth, the third car involved.
Look how he's wadded up the back end of that.
But these cars have become so good from the period of time that you and I drove, Eddie. They've got these new cars out here the last couple of years. The IndyCar Series has spent so much time on the monocoque, as they call it, the cockpit of the car. It's built like a jet fighter. And these cars, when they look like they're constructed as they are built to compress, to absorb all the impact. As we see him step out of the car and the crowd give him a round of applause.
This is the safest the series has been. Open wheel racing has ever been at Indy.
There's Sebastian Saavedra, who hit not only the outside, the contact with the other cars, but hit the inside wall also.
Both you and I have crashed, Eddie, at high speed, and it's just amazing how the impact is just so hard.
What you want is that you want the car to absorb all of the energy that you can. They have hands devices now for the neck. The helmets are better developed. We have the safer barrier. We have so many things to help the drivers.
Stefano Coletti out of his car as well. His first experience in Indianapolis ends in a very difficult way.
And his first crash also.
Bottom of the screen, Hawksworth
might have hit the car in front of him, and that caused him to spin.
I think he did actually make contact with, I believe that's Saavedra, and sent them both going into the wall. See, Saavedra still got his foot on the gas because he knows he's going towards the wall, so he put his foot on the gas, try and make the tires spin to lessen the impact at the last moment, then put his foot on the brakes. But that is a hard hit. That's just the mistiming from the 41, Jack Hawksworth, and that ABC machine just clipping the back of Saavedra.
And what's really good is all the cars stayed on the ground.
In the car that you saw going up over Saavedra, that was Coletti in the number 4 machine.
Now the best thing about this accident is they keep on moving and that energy keeps getting dissipated. The worst sort of an accident you can see is one where you just hit the wall and you stop. As they keep on rolling, they're getting rid of all of that energy that's obviously again, the safer barrier did its job.
So great racing up front, but look at all those bits and pieces scattered around on the track after the crash in the back of the field. And it's going to require some time to clean up. And they continue to work to get Sebastian Saavedra out of his car. Under caution with 21 laps to go in the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Our telecast presented by Firestone and Willpower. Juan Pablo Montoya in the 1 and 2 cars running 1 and 2. Massive cleanup underway down in turn number 4. You saw during our side-by-side coverage Sebastian Saavedra being extricated from his car. Here's the beginnings of the accident. Jack Hawksworth in the 41 and Saavedra in the 17.
The safer barrier does exactly what it's designed for. Look at it bend when all the cars run into it.
That safer barrier is a steel energy and foam reduction system that's in front of that concrete wall.
And that's when Saavedra, it seems when they had to carry him out of the car, they did hurt his foot. They had to cut his boot off to get him out of the car.
Well, he went from there and hit the inside wall with the nose of that car, so that might also have been something to do with it. Now see, bottom of the screen, 7 car is James Jakes. More on that in a minute. Takuma Sato driving through the mess.
Now you're clear by 4. Stay low, stay low, stay low.
And James Jakes, watch the biometrics and how calmly he's under control going through the scene.
His heart rate slowed down.
James wearing those sensors for us today during the 500-mile race. Cool as could be as the action heats up toward the finish of the 500. Watching the rescue teams haul away Sebastian Saavedra's car as we continue to work the caution at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Indianapolis 500 telecast presented by Firestone. The laps are running out toward the finish. And updates on some stories first before we get to the restart. We had the pit road accident earlier involving all three of the Dale Coyne Racing entries. Crew member Greg Cenarius, who was the right front tire changer on the 18 car, was released from the Infield Medical Center here at the racetrack. Daniel Yang, the outside rear tire changer for that car, has been transferred to IU Health Methodist Hospital for evaluation and treatment, and no further update on potential injuries, but our best wishes to him. Simon Pagenaud pitting after the front wing damage. In the big melee of a restart that nobody crashed from until another half a lap. What are we going to see when we go back racing this time? With a chance to drink some milk, kiss a brick, and hold a great big treasured trophy at stake. One to go. We'll go racing with 15 laps left in the Indianapolis 500. Will Power is the leader. Dr. Jerry Punch is in his pit.
Team Penske President Tim Cindric calls the shots for Will Power. And Tim, how confident are you that Will's got what he needs to hold off Montoya and Dixon?
I think it's all going to be a matter of the last lap, just like last year. It's going to be a matter of getting yourself in position, staying up there in that top two, and then shooting it out for the last 2 laps. I don't think it'll hold on for very long.
All right, should be wild to watch. Jan.
And John Boslag, we just heard from Tim Cindric. He said track position was key, just had to wait till the end. Do you have something for Power?
We think we got a good car right now. We're a little worried about Dixon, but it's going to be exciting here, that's for sure.
It'll definitely be exciting. Of course, he makes the calls for Juan Pablo Montoya. Alan?
Now, Montoya got a warning for hanging back on the last restart. He was apprised of that by his crew, questioned it. But will this restart be the ultimate moment of the race? It's our Firestone moment of the race. It could be the turning point. Good things can happen.
And bad things can happen.
Difficult things can happen. Simon Pagenaud back in 21st place. 21 cars on the lead lap. Here we go.
Dixon cannot get any closer to Montoya's gearbox.
Montoya just didn't seem like he got that much of a run initially, you thought, but I think he was just getting a good draft.
Here comes Dixon. Here comes Munoz.
Montoya in the grass. And he gets Dixon. Remember, Power took out rear wing. Picking up rear wing makes the car fast from the straightaway.
And it's a perfect move if you're leading, which he's doing right now. Would not be the best thing if you're in traffic.
He has to hope he can catch up to the back markers before this race is over. And here goes Dixon on the outside of Montoya.
Second place. Charlie Kimball up to fourth.
Look at these three. It's one car.
Dixon to the outside of Power to turn 3 and into the race lead.
You kind of get the feeling that Dixon has been holding back something.
Dixon protects the inside, Power to the outside, and he'll go back to the
front. And who's the guy that's hanging back and forth right now? What a tremendous run, Charlie Kimball. Looks like he's got his car working the best at the end of the day.
When you're passing Montoya, it's not going to cut it.
Look at how much ground it cost him.
Dixon is all by himself.
Well, the old phrase, desperate times call for desperate measures, but when you're the leader and you're trying to win the Indianapolis 500 and you get desperate, good things don't happen. Here's Dixon to the outside of Power.
But we know that's not going to last because they only can stay up front for a lap and a half.
Yeah, but as race car drivers, you want to be in the front, right?
Oh, I know, but are you thinking I now have 11 to go, they're going to pass me 3 times, or we just have to keep fighting for that lead?
You never know when the last caution is going to wave. It happens inside the last 10 laps of the race a lot. IndyCar officials last year were able to red flag the race and get a green flag finish, but there are circumstances under which they won't be able to do that. And looking outside,
and he's crowding him to the bottom. And who goes up high? Montoya.
Side by side. Inside. Montoya has to give.
Penske 1-2.
I think they need to put a heart rate monitor on me because I'm riding along here with these guys. Holy smokes.
Advantage Penske. If Montoya, and it looks like he's not going to work with him, but if they work together, there is no way Dixon will pass him.
When you see these drivers dive all the way to the inside, they're protecting that inside lane, which is great, but the draft is effective enough that we've seen a lot of those outside passes like Montoya just made. You can only make one move. You can't move in reaction to someone else's, so you got to pick your lane and hope it works out.
Until the last lap, because that'll change coming out of 4, I assure you.
But the preferred pass right now, you're right, Alan, seems to be the outside lane.
Dixon was able to mix it up with the 2 Penske cars, then had to give a little ground in that 3 wides shuffle off to turn 1. Now he closes back into the draft. Side by side again for the race lead. Power. Wow.
That is so close.
Will Power, last year's series champion, said he's totally focused on winning this 500 this year. He checked the championship box off last fall. He's trying to get through this race. He knows he has a good car. He knows he has the ability. In the past, mistakes have taken him out of these races. Pit road speeding penalties and so on. He's gotten through the last pit stop. He's racing for the lead. He wants it desperately. Second place, Dixon on Montoya.
And that all happened back in 3 and 4 when Montoya tried to get low and take a run out of 4 on Will Power. He got too close, had to take his foot out of the throttle mid-turn, cost him straightaway speed.
Charlie Kimball hanging in 4th. Doesn't look like he has enough to get up there and mess with these front 3. But if he does, he hasn't shown it yet.
Looks like those changes that Power made to his car in that last pit stop are working for him.
6 laps to go right here. 6 to go after this.
The subtle setup on Montoya when he didn't have enough of a draft to make a pass attempt to make sure he stayed with those front 2. As Will's wife Liz tries to battle the nerves. Kimball's closing in a little bit now on these front 3.
Kimball is a teammate to Scott Dixon, so if he can get up there and get in the mix and help a little bit, but it looks like he just can't keep the speed up through the turns.
Montoya is lining up Dixon. Look at him move the steering wheel.
Willing his car to stay with these front 2 and try and win this race.
After this lap, Power will have 4 laps to go.
Four to go here. 4 to go.
Tim Cindric, the strategist for Willpower.
I don't know how Dixon's going to stop Montoya this time.
There's Emma Dixon. The outside move, Montoya on Dixon for second.
Clear.
That was a surprise clear from the spotter.
Yeah.
Oh,
You made it.
Smokes, you made it. Yeah.
3 laps to go after this one.
And that really cost Dixon a lot of ground and momentum. Here's Montoya with a full run on Willpower for the race lead.
We're together here.
He's cleared it.
I think he decided, Eddie, it's time to go.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's the right place.
Clear by 5.
Montoya was 30th.
Look at Dixon. He lost 3rd place to Charlie Kimball. That moment cost Dixon 3rd place and a shot at fighting these two for the win.
And Montoya's driving away.
5 miles is a lot of distance the way this draft has been working today. And here they come. The final 2 laps, 5 miles at Indianapolis. Juan Pablo Montoya leads. Willpower is second. Charlie Kimball third. Scott Dixon fourth. Next time is the white flag.
And Power is back in his toe. Montoya's trying to break the toe by going to the bottom part of the track and then back up to the high part.
Right now, it'll be a Penske win unless these two guys take themselves out. And who's behind you? 2 Ganassi cars.
The white flag is waiting at the yard of bricks. And we enter the final lap of the Indianapolis 500. Kimball has caught up to Power. 1 lap to go. Who's going to win it? Slipped in turn 2. Justin Wilson just came off the pit lane. He and Munoz had to stop for fuel. Final 2 corners for Montoya. He was all the way back in 30th place after an opening crash. Here they come to the checkered flag. And the winner of the Indianapolis 500 is Juan Pablo Montoya.
My man! Yeah! Yeah! That's how he's good! Great job, Juan. Guys, you're awesome. Unbelievable.
Roger Penske has won a 16th Indianapolis 500 as an entrant. Rick?
Roger Penske just jumping off the wall to go say hello to Chip Ganassi. What an epic duel between 2 giants of this sport. And I have to tell you, Roger Penske's a pretty stoic guy. You were yelling and screaming at the end of that thing. But how does it feel?
Well, I couldn't believe it to see those 2 guys out there. Ganassi was so strong all day long and smart driver in Dixon, but our guys stayed in there, and Montoya coming from all the way in the back, I'll tell you, you give that guy the bit, put it in his mouth. As you know, he doesn't give up, so it was a great day for Team Penske, and I tell you, I'm just so thrilled for everybody that works for us in our company and all the people that support us and all these race fans that are here. What a great day.
All right, there has to have been a little ball of nerves in there as you watched 2 top drivers up there duking it out on those last 10 laps. What were you thinking?
You know, I knew I had 2 up there. The worry was Dixon in the 83, but you know, at the end of the day, they played fair all day, good passing, in and out, so all I say, we won the race. That's all I can say.
Welcome back to victory, sir.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks.
Juan Pablo Montoya said he blocks out the magnitude of an event when he comes here to Indianapolis or Monaco or Daytona. He blocks it out. He says, I want to get the job done first. Then I'll enjoy it. He is enjoying it today here at Indianapolis.
what a storybook Indy 500 for Juan Pablo Montoya. Sharing the milk with his team, with his family. Juan Pablo, it's not the first time you have had that milk, but what a difference. You had to do it the hard way today, coming from 30th.
Yeah, it was fun, you know, Verizon Chevy was good all day. You know, these guys, Team Penske did an amazing job. You know, when I came to the field, I knew I had a really good car, but that fight there at the end was hard. Oh my God, that was awesome.
The guys upstairs were just saying that you have an ability to block out these big events, but you've got to be feeling right now. You've just won the Indy 500 for the second time.
I know, I don't even know what to say, you know, this is too much, it's pretty good. I'm looking for the wife, so I don't know. Motas, la señora. Looking for the wife,
Well, from what we have seen, and I can tell you from pit road, that was nerve-wracking, looking for his family, for obvious. That was a tough one to watch for her, I can imagine.
I think for everybody, you know what I mean? But this is what racing and IndyCar is all about. Awesome racing all the way down to the wire. That was pretty awesome.
Congratulations, Juan. Wow, 15 years between victories, and this one, he definitely did the hard way. Some people said the first one was easy. Definitely not today, Alan.
Riveting, heart-pounding, can't look away. That's how I describe those last laps between Montoya, Power, Dixon, and Kimball getting in on it at the end. Juan Pablo Montoya now 2 for 3 in IndyCar competition here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He came here in 2000 and led 167 of 200 laps, starting second and winning the race. Last year he started 10th and finished 5th in his return to IndyCar. Today he got hit under caution, had to go to pit road, change the rear wing on his car, then slid through his pits on a subsequent stop. He was as far back as 30th in the opening laps of this race, and he's in victory lane now. Amazing. To Dr. Jerry Punch.
Down here with Will Power and wife Elizabeth, and I know it was gut-wrenching on you, but let me just show you this. Elizabeth, that's what she was chewing on those last few laps. That was a bottle. That was a water bottle with 2 laps to go. Now take us through what was going on inside your helmet as you battled Dixon and Montoya those final couple laps.
Well, you know, I was trying to keep the lead because I knew with the heat the tyres would degrade and eventually they wouldn't be able to get runs, but Montoya got that last run and maybe I was a bit nice to him into one and lifted. And after that, I'd set my car out, obviously being out front. I got behind, had a lot of push. I got really close to him out of 2, and then I just washed off and had to lift, and that was a race. But that was some serious racing there. Like, it's a lot of fun. You know, full credit to the team, finishing 1-2. You know, I think you know, they've done a fantastic job all month, and man, just too much push there. Damn. That's all I could. That's all I had. But congrats to Juan. You know, he's very strong all day. He had to come through the field, and sucks finished in second. I've done that a few times in the championship. So, you know, but hey, it's the Indy 500. It was a good race, and we'll move on.
Will Power's career best finish in Indianapolis, second here today. Let's go to Rick.
Yeah, here with Will Kimball, who's doing his best Will Power impersonation. You had one heck of a view. We'll talk about your race in a moment, but what was it like to watch that epic battle ahead of you?
Well, I was hoping they were going to push each other just that little bit too far and end up in the gray, and I thought I was in the catbird seat. We just couldn't quite get close enough right at the end to be able to make a run at him, but overall, I mean, the Letterman Flex Touch car was quick when it needed to be. The guys made it better in the pit stops, and I mean, they were money on Friday and they were money today.
Charlie Kimball finishes 3rd, and boy, he looked like he won the Indy 500 when he came in doing high fives.
Great job by Charlie Kimball today, and what a race. Team Penske duking it out up front, and Juan Pablo Montoya edging out his teammate Will Power to win the biggest prize in open wheel racing, the Indianapolis 500 for a second time. Can there be anything sweeter than being first across the yard of racing?
Oh, man! Yeah!
He found the rest of the family, and they're all celebrating in victory lane together at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as Juan Pablo Montoya has won the 99th running of the greatest spectacle in racing. There's Kathy Penske just over Connie Montoya's shoulder as well. As we look at the Sunoco race results, Montoya with his second win in the 500, Will Power, Charlie Kimball, and ninth place Joseph Newgarden, all with their best ever results in this race.
And this race really gives you a lot of power if you finish well to continue on throughout the racing series. Ryan Briscoe doing a very nice job in 12th, subbing for James Hinchcliffe, and all the way down through there, Townsend Bell coming from the back also did a very nice job. Gabby Chavez, the team says he's got a lot of talent and looks like a guy that's going to be a mainstay in this series for quite some time.
Carlos Munoz, Justin Wilson had to pit for fuel under green in the last lap. Sebastian Saavedra is still inside the infield medical center having his right foot examined. No further update on his condition or the condition of the crew member that was transported down to Methodist Hospital. So there they are, the 33, and how they finished today in the Indianapolis 500. We check downstairs with Doc.
And Scott Dixon led 84 laps. It looked like you had the car to beat Scotty all day long, but in the last few laps, it looked like you were outnumbered and surrounded by Penske's. Take us through what went on.
Yeah, you know, I think we generally had a pretty good restart there. It was kind of just trying to pace it, and then when I really needed to go, you know, I just couldn't turn the car. And we were fighting a little bit with the car overheating, so we were trying to go through different ignition maps, and it was definitely a lot going on. And as the laps were counting down, you know, I was trying to make something happen, but just every time I came to, you know, the apex of 2 or, you know, even 4 at the end there, the front just wouldn't hang on. So had to breathe it, and you know, congrats to Juan. You know, he drove a hell of a race, a good comeback from where he came from, and obviously, you know, Charlie did a good job there too to slip into 3rd. But, you know, real proud of the team target. You know, guys, they did a fantastic job all month, but unfortunately we came away with 4th.
In hindsight, what would you have liked to have changed? If you could go back to that final pit stop, knowing what you know now, what would you have changed or asked to change?
Probably would have got a little more front wing, or just a pressure change or something, just to get a little more front end. You know, definitely when I was okay when I was in 2nd place, but if I dropped to 3rd or 4th, it was just really hard to you know, keep the car turning middle off, and that's what caught us out. But you know, we'll come back. You know, the target team's been strong all year, and you know, this one always hurts though.
Pole sitter Scott Dixon leads the most laps, but finishes 4th here today.
Still more post-race to come from the Speedway as Juan Pablo Montoya celebrates in victory lane. He gets ready to take the trip around before the big crowd and celebrate in the convertible with the fans. What a day for Juan Pablo Montoya in the opening laps. You certainly wouldn't have predicted he'd end up in victory lane.
That was such a determined drive. He and Power were so closely matched. He did that all by sheer willpower. He had a rough day.
Slid through the pits, got on top of the air hose, cost him some time on a pit stop. But kept going and going, and here was the winning move.
On the outside of turn 1. Every time I think of his drive, I just think determination. It's incredible. Never, ever gave up.
He only led 9 laps all race. 9 of 200. But he led the one that counted the most.
Exactly. You only have to leave one.
Other of our storylines, Elio Castroneves, Montoya's Penske teammate, comes up short in his bid to join the 4-time 500 winner club. He's with Dr. Jerry Plunge.
And down with Elio. And Elio, when the race started, we all thought that Spider-Man would become Rocket Man and you would take off toward the front. That never happened today. What was the issue?
Well, we have several things. One was the restart. Somehow we're not able to pull. You're always able to stay behind, and I'm not understand when as soon as I pull, everybody's like a freight train behind me. So I gotta check it out to see the timing and everything. But it was a really shame. After that, Carl's actually not bad, but we had several close calls. A lot of close calls. And 83 ended up actually throwing in the grass, and then we end up having a little issue with the front wing, and then I'm the one that have the title of the biggest blocker, and I'm like, wow, I gotta pass the baton here for someone. But and unfortunately, when we dropped back, it was just people just chopping a lot. I thought it was in the butcher house. Everybody's chopping you like crazy, and it was a very risky situation until a point. It's like, you know what, I gotta go. Hopefully you guys can see the in-car camera. I know there was a good fight in front. Unfortunately, it was a good, exciting race, but I tell you what, back there it was absolutely insane. But in the end of the day, I'm just happy to finish the race because those conditions was unbelievable. And now we got to move on. The Shelby Power Nitro Plus boys did an amazing job putting me up front. Unfortunately, 7th was the best we could do.
Elio Castroneves hoping to win a 4th. Didn't happen today, but excited about what his teammates did up front. Let's go to Rick.
Well, here with Graham Rahal, you finished 5th today. I know you're unsatisfied as a result of, the fact you didn't feel the Hondas could keep up. But if I told you were going to finish 5th before this race, would you have been happy?
I would have been shocked, yeah. I mean, as I told you the other day, I didn't think we could beat a Chevy in outright pace, and that came true today. But I'm proud of the Steak and Shake team, to come in as the top Honda. I kept saying to these guys, look, the biggest thing for us is to keep going in points. If we can be the top finishing Honda, gain points today, then we've had a successful day. And obviously, the 3 guys we're trying to keep up with the championship all finished ahead of us, but still, I feel good about it. I'm very, very proud of this team and this organization for turning it around. Coming off the last 2 years here, I can't tell you how good this feels.
You'd rather win, but today, 5th feels really good for Graham Rahal. Alan?
Well, it came down to 2 Penske Racing teammates, as you see Roger there, rehashing today with Juan Pablo Montoya. And again, another look at the winning pass down the front straightaway on lap 197 of 200.
And that took place back in turns 3 and 4s, where he got the momentum to set all that up. He got a great run down the front stretch, carried the momentum to get around Will Power and do an outside move, a move what we saw many times today, Eddie, because guys had the momentum coming out of there. And then Juan Pablo, amazing run today for him.
He was not going to take no, regardless if it was his teammate or anybody else. And the yell that came out of his helmet after he won said it all.
And so the trend continues here at Indianapolis of the winning move not coming until the final moments of the race. Talked about at the very top of the day how exciting the racing's been here, and we thought today would be exciting, but with a different twist with that draft coming in late in the straightaways. Again, another late pass decides the race for the win, and it was a late pass on the outside that wound up being the difference for Montoya.
And that's the thing we've seen here from the past couple of years. Drivers are starting to protect that inside line, so guys are getting momentum and going around the outside. I'm very excited for the cars that we have here today. Great safe race, and I expect for sure that the cars will get faster by next year.
And so for Juan Pablo Montoya, another note in the record book, the longest span between Indianapolis 500 wins. And this one needs a little bit of an asterisk because he wasn't here competing in the race for most of that time, but longest span between wins belongs now to Juan.
I don't think he's going to stop it too.
Fabulous, fabulous thing. So stories on the end of the day, no 4th for Castro Neves. It did come down to a slugfest between Penske and Ganassi. And the drafting and the racing, there were some scary incidents, but the cars stayed on the ground. And in the end, what racing we saw here today in Indianapolis.
And then we saw what we thought we would see, both Rahal and Andretti, both the top Honda drivers, 2 young Americans that have family history here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I suspect that they will get victory here at Indy before they finish out their careers.
It was a bit of a disappointing day, though, for Honda. They were definitely outpowered and outmaneuvered by Chevy. Chevy really dominated this Indianapolis 500.
So Juan Pablo Montoya, the winner of the Indianapolis 500, and next weekend here on ABC, both Saturday and Sunday, the next round in the Verizon IndyCar Series, road course racing from Belle Isle in Detroit. There's Chip Ganassi, with whom Montoya won his first 500 back in 2000. Again, next Saturday and Sunday, more of this IndyCar Series racing here on ABC at 3:30 Eastern Time. Up next, the World of X Games. That's next here on ABC. What a day. The build-up, the tension, the drama, the pageantry, the green flag, the turn 1 crash that set everybody's nerves on edge. Then the race settled into a spectacular fight that led to 37 different lead changes. And in the end, a fantastic 4-car shootout that eventually shook out to 2, with Juan Pablo Montoya getting his 2nd win in the Indianapolis 500 and Roger Penske getting his 16th. For our entire ESPN Indianapolis 500 television crew, and for Scott Goodyear and Eddie Cheever, Alan Bestwick, thanks for watching. Montoya wins again at Indianapolis.
You spend your whole life wanting to win this race.
Montoya wins the Indianapolis.
When you finally do, you realize that a jug of milk doesn't satisfy oysters. Winning the Indy 500 is great. Winning it twice? That's legendary. Tomorrow, the quest begins for number 3. But that's tomorrow. Tonight, let's hold up 2 fingers, one for each ring.
And the winner of the Indianapolis 500 is Juan Pablo Montoya.